Yeah, new, brand new.
There should be a name tag for you. Just submit a name on this.
If they don't want.
Thank you. Were these always the community board?
I can't hear the CB5, but I guess they're not talking.
Yeah, we're just waiting for quorum. We'll get started in a few minutes.
Good evening, everyone. This is Manhattan Community Board 5, State Licenses and Permits Committee. We'll be starting in just a moment. I need my vice chair to get up to speed, and then we'll take attendance and then take it from there. Okay, we're all here.
Hey, don't they? Hey.
I wasn't going to.
But if we can put up.
David, let me know when you're ready.
Oh, yeah. Is that it? Okay. And it's because we have. Because they're. If this is. No. There's a few out there.
Okay, we're going to begin with a roll call vote. David?
Nick,
Yes.
David, yes. Seth, Gordon?
Yeah.
Sorry. Sarah? So,
Say full names with the.
I'm sorry, Sarah Dawson. Catherine Ellington,
Yes.
Bill Gartland,
Yes.
Libby Hutton,
Yes.
Robert Isaacs.
No.
Oh, he's Samir Lavingia.
Yep. Hello.
Oh. Christopher Nazaro.
Yes.
Yuran Noti Victor.
Yes,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Miles Kerwin. Who's absent, right? Tiffany Rivas.
Here.
Todd Shapiro.
Here.
BJ Sung. Sachi Takahashi Real.
Nope.
Absent. Zona Chu,
Yes.
Janice Young,
Yes.
Alan Yu.
Yes.
Okay,
Confirm for the record that we have a quorum.
we do have a quorum.
Great. Good evening, everyone. This is the State Licenses and Permits Committee of Manhattan Community Board 5. I'm Nick Athanale. I'll be your chair. We've got 5 items on the agenda tonight in no particular order. They are 1412 Broadway, 487th Avenue, 35 East 21st Street, 133 West 30th Street, and 11 West 17th Street. Is there anyone attending that has any other business for the committee other than the items on the agenda? If there's any new business for the committee, please raise your hand. Members of the public, you can raise your hand now if you have any new business for the committee. Seeing none, new business is closed. So I want to welcome the 4 new members of the committee. Because this is their first time attending a SLAT meeting, I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate than I usually am, and I'm going to provide a little bit more guidance than I usually do. I hope that helps you. That being said, we have 5 items on the agenda, so I will be quick and efficient, and we'll move this meeting along effectively. So please keep your comments brief, effective, and to the point. Before we get to the applications, I'd like to go through the CB5's hybrid attendance requirements. You should all be familiar with the hybrid guidelines that CB5 passed a couple of months ago. And just as a summary, I will explain the 5 different categories of hybrid attendance. Number 1 is present. You're physically present in the room. You count towards a quorum, you can deliberate, and you can vote. Second is present virtually. Present virtually are people who have a permanent disability that has been notified to the board chair and the committee chair. Those members count towards a quorum, they can deliberate, and they can vote. The third category is virtual attendance. In order to attend a meeting virtually, you need permission from the board chair and the committee chair, and you need to qualify under one of the exceptions that are in the guidelines and pursuant to law. Basically, it's a medical excuse or childcare or something like that. The reasons you're allowed to attend virtually are very specific. They're in the guidelines, they're in the law. You need to qualify, you need to let the chair and me and the board chair and the committee chair know. Members who attend virtually do not count toward quorum, but they can deliberate and they can vote. The next category is virtual, but absent. So you're attending virtually, but you don't have a permitted excuse. You can still participate. You can join virtually. You do not count towards quorum. You can deliberate, but you cannot vote. The last category is absent. You're not here. you're not there, pretty self-explanatory. You don't count towards quorum, you can't deliberate, and you can't vote. Any questions about the hybrid attendance requirements? Okay, thank you. So the way that we'll conduct the rest of the meeting, when I call an application, I'll ask the applicants to introduce themselves. I'll then turn the meeting over to a committee member. The committee member will present the application, give a summary of the specifics. And after that, I'll give the applicant an opportunity to speak. At any time during that process, members of the committee can ask questions and make comments by raising their hand and waiting to be recognized. After that process, I'll give the public an opportunity to comment, again, by using the raised hand button. Once they're recognized, we will ask them to turn on their cameras, unmute themselves, and give their comments. After that, I'll put the committee into what's called a business session. During the business session, only the committee discusses the application. At that point, no further input from the applicant or the public is appropriate unless requested by the chair. During the business session, the committee will discuss the application. There will be a motion and the committee will take a vote. The vote of this committee will be our recommendation to the full board of CB5, which meets sometime next week. Please check the website for that information. The vote of the full board will be CB5's position on the application. So first up, we've got two cannabis applications. As a refresher for the new people on the board, CB5 has cannabis guidelines. The guidelines are very specific about what we can review and how we review these applications. The guidelines provide that if an application is compliant with the guidelines, we will approve it. If the application is not compliant with the guidelines, we will deny it. So it's pretty black and white. The guidelines were put into effect to make our process transparent, consistent, and uniform. So we will review these two cannabis applications with that in mind. First up being 1412 Broadway, Cube USA LLC. Can I have the applicant please introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Quine Liddell.
How do you pronounce your name again?
That's Quine, Quine, Quine.
Fine, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Anyone else from your team?
Yeah, my name is George Valamas.
Yes, and I'm Kate Ruby. I'm with Castetter Consulting Group.
Anyone else? Okay, welcome to you all. Who's going to be presenting this application?
This is,
Okay, Seth, take it away.
okay, so the applicant, like we said, is applying for a dispensary license.
So speak up when we're on virtually. It's very difficult for people to hear unless you speak loudly.
Gotcha. So yeah, the location is at 1412 Broadway. The size of the
What are the
premises.
cross streets there?
Oh, I can double check that.
Does the applicant know what the cross street is?
That would be 39th and Broadway.
39th Broadway.
Thank you.
And the size of the premises are 6,400 square feet, spread out over 2 floors. The capacity is 65 below grade, 30 on the ground floor, and then there will be 6 staff at 8 kiosks. The applicant is requesting hours of 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. every night. And the proposed method of operation is they're applying for a license with site sales, so on-site sales, as well as delivery sales. And those will be, the applicant specified they'll be on foot. So no electric scooters, no e-bike deliveries, etc. And they also said that private security will be used. So we did not get community input on this specifically. So nothing to note there. I will say though, the CB5 guidelines on this do conflict with the application. So The applicants did specify that the location was approved by the Office of Cannabis Management. So they did approve that location, but the site abuts a public plaza area there on Broadway. So it does conflict with the guideline we have that we've established with the Kansas Task Force.
So
Where
the requirement that Seth is referring to is the requirement in the guidelines that the applicant, that the location be no less than 500 feet from a park or public space. Is that correct?
that's right, yeah. And so that's the last thing to note, because about something up.
Is the establishment within 500 feet of any residences?
I would need to double check. I'm actually not certain.
Catherine, did you look into that? Are there any
Yeah,
residences? at
is it a
500?
commercial? It's a commercial, no, it isn't it.
Great. Okay, the only reason I ask is that if the premises is within 500 feet of a residence, we have restrictions on the hours of operation. But if it's not within 500 feet of a residence, that won't apply here. But we do have a problem with the location because of its proximity to the public plaza. Any questions from or comments from the committee before we go to the applicant? Samir?
I believe, I have the guidelines up. I believe for the 500 feet of a residence, that's only for on-site consumption. But because this is not on-site consumption, it is where you purchase and then you consume somewhere else, that will not apply.
No, my version of the guideline says no establishment for the retail sale, delivery, or on-site consumption shall operate later than 2 a.m.
Right, so that is, that does not matter if there are residents nearby or not, that is blanket.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for that correction. So their request for 2 a.m. would be compliant with that.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
And then just for further clarification pursuant to Samir's comment, if there is on-site consumption within 500 feet of a residence, we would restrict the hours of operation Sunday through Wednesday to 1 a.m. and then Thursday through Saturday, no later than 2 a.m. But those do not apply in this case, so 2 a.m. would be compliant. So the only non-compliance here is the proximity to the public plaza. Anything else from the committee? Would the applicant like to make any comments, address the committee at all?
I would not.
Okay,
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for having us, and we hope to somehow convince you that 39th and Broadway is good for the neighborhood, even though there is tables and chairs in front of the space. We are here to bring compliant, safe product to the neighborhood and the tourists that come over there. And we feel that, combating the gray market is something that needs to be done. And I think it's very convenient that we are not in front of a traffic lane with vehicles. It works, I think, good for the community. We're going to bring in good, high-paying jobs, and maybe we could rethink allowing variances within your board for these specific situations.
thank you, George. Catherine, you have your hand up?
yeah, so I did, we met with the applicant, we had a community meeting. These are meetings where the Cannabis Task Force takes times with the applicant to get to know and to connect with each other. So I had asked the applicants to meet specifically with Garment District Alliance, 34th Street Partnership, and perhaps the NYPD Community Council. Have you had an opportunity to meet with any of those or connect with other businesses in the area?
We were down the other day to connect with businesses. It's just the time period of this CB5 meeting is running parallel with our submission with the state. So we had a lot of preparation due to get, to resubmit our application, which was our main focus, to get all our ducks in a row. And then meeting the neighborhood is going to be happening every week. Quan and I scour the neighborhood, try to collect some signatures for you, which is harder than raising money. But other than that, the people are very nice people, and they seem very happy to have us.
Great, thank you, George. Anything else before I open the floor to the public? Okay, would anyone from the public like to comment on this application? If so, please click the raise hand button now. So I would like to make a suggestion to the public regarding their comments. The Office of Cannabis Management does not consider illegal operations when it is reviewing applications for a legal license. So if you have any comments tonight about illegal operations, that will not be considered. It's not a factor for the Office of Cannabis Management. And I would direct those comments to the board office at office@cb5.org so that your complaints regarding illegal operations can be treated as a constituent services matter. Again, the presence of illegal cannabis dispensaries is not relevant to the Office of Cannabis Management. Please do not comment about illegal operations this evening. That being said, Brian Weber, we will promote you to panelist. Please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Brian, please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Great. Brian, did you hear my suggestion about the scope of your testimony?
Yes, Nicholas, I'm well aware. I am a public member on Community Board 4. I'm also the president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council, and I happen to be on the Garment District Alliance as well. I will tell you that Midtown South Precinct Community Council has not heard from the applicant, nor do I suspect the Garment District Alliance has. If the applicant had contacted us, we would have both spoken to them about the appropriateness of this location. And it is troubling to me that the Office of Cannabis Management said this is an appropriate location. A, it is on a public plaza, but more importantly, it is the conditions that are ever present on that public plaza. As the precinct council president, I receive constant complaints regarding the conditions of brazen narcotic use on 39th and Broadway and 40th and Broadway. One other thing to note is that this area and the proximity of this location, and I'll be testifying on the next establishment as well, is stock full of social service facilities that treat substance abuse. The Garment District Alliance recently had to remove its furnishings from the plaza and reconfigure it because there was too much narcotic use and too much alcohol use on that plaza. So I don't know what George's comments are about the community welcoming it, but I could tell you that the businesses around there will not welcome it. And it might be great for tourists, but it's not great for the existing community. And I'd also like to note that I will be commenting on the next applicant as well. Thank you, board, for your time.
Thanks, Brian. While I have you, so our research about social service facilities in that area is a little bit lacking. So if you could provide the team with a list of those establishments, that would be
Absolutely.
helpful for our purposes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'll send that to Mike and Marissa.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, next speaker will be Lillian Marcano. Lillian, we're going to promote you to panelist. So please turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, Lillian, you can turn on your camera.
Yeah, I have it turned off. I only want to comment on that.
So Lillian, before you begin, I just want to make sure you heard my suggestion about the scope of your testimony.
Yes, I do understand that I'm not going to be talking about illegal stores.
Great, so tell us who you are.
Yeah, I'd just like to know how you're going to supervise.
Lillian, before you go into your comments, please tell us who you are.
Oh, okay. I'm a resident at 360 West 36th Street, a co-op, very close, well, right next door to Brian Weber, actually. And we shareholders in this building have been very upset with the conditions of the neighborhood related often to narcotics use, specifically at the corner of 8th Avenue and 36th Street. So when I hear that the possible new owner of this store that wants their application approved, that they're going to supervise smokers who might light up coming out of the store. I don't know how you can do that, right? It makes no sense to me. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
May I just respond to that if I may?
Not yet, Kate.
Okay.
Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand now. Okay, seeing none, I'll put the committee into a business session. As a reminder, during the business session, no further input from the applicant or the public is appropriate unless requested by the chair. Kate, I will give you the opportunity to respond to the public comments.
Yes, well, so I'll respond to I'll go last first. So obviously outside of the premises, our applicant has no legal control to control, adults' behavior beyond the boundaries of his store, other than potentially, involving security or police if there's illicit activity or a nuisance occurring directly outside of his store, which I'm sure George and Quine would both be more than willing to do. Secondly, as far as supervising, they can't necessarily supervise, but they can provide educational materials together with a printed receipt advising customers not to smoke directly outside the store in front of children or in the public plaza, which also I'm sure George and Quine would be more than willing to do. And thirdly, I will just say, while narcotic use is obviously a horrible phenomenon, there's a difference between cannabis and opioids, as well as cannabis and alcohol. And while one of the main legislative intents of the MRTA is to repair the damage done by the disproportionate enforcement of cannabis prohibition in communities across the state, as well as to destigmatize the plant, because there are many other beneficial uses of cannabis, such as reduction in anxiety, sleep, aiding with sleep, and other things that we are just beginning to research. Additionally, in the law, there is an indication that the state views cannabis as potentially an alternative to opioids and potentially a treatment for opioid use. So that's another just point of fact.
Great, thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Okay, any comments from the committee before we take this to a vote? Okay, so I'm getting this sense from the committee that there's a consensus that because the application does not comply with the guidelines because of its proximity to the public plaza, as well as to social service facilities to be named shortly, that there will be a denial of the application. Does anyone disagree with my observation? Okay, so we'll take this to a vote. Who presented this?
That was me.
Would you like to make a motion?
Motion to deny.
Okay, David?
Nick Afanel,
Yes.
David Sigmund's yes, Seth Gordon,
Yes.
Speak up.
Sarah is absent. Catherine Ellington,
Yes.
Bill Gartland,
Yes.
Libby Hutton,
Yes.
Samir Lavinia,
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro,
Yes.
Iran Noti Victor,
Yes.
Tiffany Rivas,
Yes.
Todd Shapiro,
Yes.
Zona Chu,
Yes.
Janice Young,
Yes.
Alan Yu,
Yeah.
It passes.
Okay, so I just want to make a comment to the applicant. Most likely because this location was chosen by the state, your operation will proceed at this location despite our denial. So I would encourage you to continue your outreach to the stakeholders, the garment center bid, the Midtown South Community Council, and the residents that have testified tonight and those that are near you otherwise, so that you can be as good a neighbor as possible. Next up, Erudito Herbals, 487th Avenue. Can the applicant please introduce themselves?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Fernando Lendoff. I am the owner, founder of Erudito Herbals, legal cannabis dispensary to be located at 487th Avenue. I'm joined
Thank
here with
you.
Mark Fitzgerald, community consultant, and Eric Schneider, security for Scheibold Security. Thank you so much for having us today. We appreciate the opportunity to share our plans, thoughts, and our business with SLAP community and the Cannabis Task Force.
Thanks, Fernando. Who's going to
Thank you.
present this application?
That would be me.
Okay, Todd, take it away.
Okay, so it's Erudito Herbals LLC. It's located at 487th Avenue. The cross streets are 36th Street and 7th Avenue. That's not far from the office. Very heavily populated area. Okay, they're applying for both the dispensary license on site and the dispensary license for delivery off site. Okay, their operation is going to be taking up 4 floors of the building. Relevant to our discussion, the ground floor is going to be a sales area with between 4 and 6 dispensary counters. The second floor is going to be related clothing and other apparatus related to cannabis sales. Okay, second floor and third floor, third and fourth floor are going to be businesses or business offices of various types. The total square footage, we've got 1,200 square foot per floor, 4 floors, as I said. There are 2 exits. I'll leave the method of operation, which is, I think, fairly straightforward to the applicant when they get their chance to speak. The hours of operation, delivery are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. The applicant has done their own work. They claim there are no schools, places of worship, parks, playgrounds, or community facilities or home facilities that would present an issue for CB5's guidelines or New York State guidelines. There's one issue that I'll speak to when I'm done presenting the basics. As far as I could see, I did an on-site survey. I would agree with that assessment. Going forward, no plans for on-site consumption at this time. They will have their own security. They're in the process of picking it. The hours of operation for the working of the establishment are 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday. That falls, I believe, within the hours of the CB5 rules and regulations, as well as the state. As far as community engagement, Catherine and I, at the preliminary meeting, have spoken with the candidate. They've made best efforts on short notice to reach out to several community groups. We specifically heard back from the Midtown South Community Council. That would be Mr. Weber, who we already heard from. He's going to have something to say. We've also heard back from the West 36th Street Block Association. Just quickly in passing, and this will be a subject of discussion, the community board office has heard back, just in a general sense, the area is one with multiple illegal dispensaries and other drug-related and crime-related issues that are of great concern for the residents and businesses in the area, to the extent that that has to do or impacts upon our jurisdiction, which narrowly defined as time, place, and manner. That's something that obviously is of concern to people in our district. And I'm sure that the applicant will want to speak to that. The other thing I would say is there was a point of confusion, both on my part and in some of the responses from the neighborhood. They are actually taking over the site. And again, I would like the applicant to speak to this and confirm it. They are actually taking over the site of Weedworks. There seems to be some concern that Weedworks, the place, they have a terrible reputation. They're an illegal vendor. They are taking over that site and plan to run it in conformity with the regulations of the CRB and with our own regulations, Community Board Five's regulations. With that, I'll turn it back over to Nick, and he can allow the applicant to speak to these issues and maybe talk a little bit about their method of operation and how they're going to deal with, oh, just one other thing. They actually were during the due diligence, they gave us an extensive list of all of the harm remediation establishments within the area. We have access to that. That was sent today. Okay. They also have a list of all of the local places that they talked to and responded to. With that, I'll turn it back over to Nick.
So Todd, just to clarify, are you saying that there are no harm reduction facilities within 500 feet?
The only one that's a possible issue is there's an office, yeah, I believe it's just either within or outside of the 500 square foot limit, but it's just offices, it's just management offices. There's nothing actually, no treatment or no transit of any patients or anybody that's actually being there. I can give the name and location of that place later if anybody needs to know, and they can speak about it as well. Okay.
Can you just repeat the hours of operation time?
Okay, the hours of operation. Hold on 1 second.
My
For
notes-
delivery, we've got 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. That's for delivery.
Right.
Okay, and then we've got the on-site hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m., Monday through Saturday, and then we've got 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Sunday. Did you get that?
I think so. I can't ask again.
Anything from the committee before we let the applicant speak? Okay, with the applicant like to-
This is Catherine. I just want to add that this is an applicant that has fully engaged community in a very short period of time. And so we want to pay attention to that because these are going to be businesses operating in the neighborhood. And so they've done some groundwork, and I wanted, as the chair who met with them just last week, I want to take note of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Anything else before I go to the applicant? Okay, will the applicant like to make any comments? Fernando, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. There was noise in the background, so I had to mute you during
Yes.
presentation.
Okay.
You're
So
on.
yeah, we're on the southwest side of 36 and 7, fully complying with state regulations and CB5's general cannabis licensing guidelines. Yes, there are no schools or house of worship within 500. No schools. Correct. Within 500 feet, no houses of worship within 200 feet, and no parks or plaza within 1,000 feet of the dispensary. It is a 4-story building. Basically, listen, I was running uncompliant for a very long time, and the state granted me this license, and it's my dream to be here in front of all you guys to just finally become licensed, and I won't say just become one of you, but at least become part of your community. I don't know if you guys all share the same feelings about cannabis that I do, but I really want to just help the community there, especially there's been a lot of deterioration in that area. And I think that the store, my team are going to do a great job to mitigate, crime and everything else that's in that area just by having a safe place, a stabilizing force in that neighborhood.
Fernando, can you clarify a little bit what you mean by you've been operating? Do you mean to say that you're related to Weedworks? That's the
No,
president?
no, not at all. On the contrary, I'm saying that because, I'm sorry for any confusion there. What I mean to say is that's how I earned this license. I'm a justice involved individual who used to sell cannabis.
Got it. Is anyone from your team related to Weedworks?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay.
I have Mark Fitzgerald who can elaborate a little bit more. And excuse me for being a little bit nervous. I don't want to mince words. It's just pretty much that. I'm coming from the underground, from the shadows, to luckily being here presenting myself and my business.
Got it. Thank you, Fernando. Mara, what did you want to add?
Yeah, I want to be very, very clear. All right, Fernando, Erditu, the entire business, the entire team, none of us have any connection whatsoever to Weed World. Weed World is one of the most egregious bad operators, illegal dispensaries in the state. We are not connected to them. We are actually evicting them. So hopefully that'll help some of the issues around the loud music that they play and the antisocial element that they tend to attract. As Fernando said, the business really, we hope that it will be, and we expect that it will be, and we will strive for it to be a stabilizing force in the neighborhood. The store itself will not be attractive to this element. It will not be attractive. Our security will keep the traffic flow going. There will not be loitering as much as we can handle it. Loitering, we're trying to mitigate all those bad issues. We've spent a lot of time over the past few weeks in the neighborhood. We've talked to all the wonderful neighbors, like the great folks over at West 36th Street Block Association, Barbara and Jerry over at the Garment District Alliance. We've reached out to 34th Street Partnership. We even spoke to that social services office across the street and all of our neighbors. We visited, I think, about 20 stores so far, and that engagement is ongoing. We will always continue to engage with the neighbors, continue going to community council meetings at Midtown South and community board meetings and the Build the Block meetings. Fernando really wants to be a part of this community and be of benefit.
Thank you, Mara.
I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I think of no other better place to be than in New York, Times Square.
Thank you, Fernando.
And I just want to add one more thing, just for the confusion.
Quickly.
Erudito is a play off the word erudite, and erudite is a learned person. So I'm here to learn from all you guys on how I could be a better player in this, but also so you guys could learn, or my clients could learn from me, of what legal cannabis is for the state of New York.
Thank you, Fernando. Anything from the committee before we go to the public? Would anyone from the, Todd?
Okay. You know, time, place, and manner is our jurisdiction. And the time and manner, I think, is not an issue here. But the place most certainly is. And I just want to make sure it's reported and read into the record that the mechanism that the state is using, such as it is, right? This, you know, Catherine and I have been through around the block at least a few times. And this applicant is going to be under the microscope because it came up in the due diligence that there are between 12 and 14 illegal operators.
We can't talk about illegal operations.
Okay, the quality of life in the neighborhood, you know, is going to be directly impacted by the success or failure of this applicant, right? So, you know, how the CRB reacts and how we vote on it and the way we vote on it is going to be a precedent. I just want to make sure that when we talk about there's going to be a resolution, right, Nick, that we're going to vote on,
Yes.
that we make it clear that, you know, for me, I did the due diligence on this, and for them, I would say that they are in conformity, right? So even though, you know, they're in conformity and that they have made best efforts. Not being an advocate for them, I'm just saying that this is what I've seen.
Okay. Would anyone from the public like to comment on this application? Please use the raised hand button now. Again, I will remind you that the Office of Cannabis Management does not consider illegal operations in their licensing of legal ones. So tonight we will not be taking any comments about illegal operations. If you have comments about illegal operations, please forward them to office@cb5.org. We'll start with Brian Weber.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Board 5. I want to clarify something. I am the co-chair of the West 36th Street Block Association. I don't know if Mar is aware of that. To the previous applicant, you asked them to reach out to the Midtown South Community Council. The Midtown South Precinct Community Council is the community organization affiliated with Midtown South Precinct. There's a little bit of confusion around our name. To this applicant, this is not a comment on the applicant. This is not a comment on the legislation regarding cannabis. This is strictly a comment on place. Mike Fissinger attends most of the Midtown South Build-A-Block meetings for Sector David, and he could tell you that the bulk of those meetings are occupied by discussion of West 36th Street, specifically between 7th and 8th Avenue. Although it might be outside of the 500-foot perimeter, there is a 800-person methadone, 800-client methadone clinic on West 35th Street and 8th Avenue. There is a harm reduction facility operated by Housing Works on 37th and 8th Avenue. And on West 36th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue is ACI, which is a substance abuse program. These are only 3 of the programs that are on the 8th Avenue corridor. And it is their clientele that contribute heavily to the illicit activity in our neighborhood. Now, I know I'm talking about opioid activity and also crack. 36 between 7th and 8th is hard hit daily with significant public brazen drug use. I will also be happy to furnish the board with the amount of narcotic arrests on that street. Now, I understand that none of this is explicitly counter to cannabis law, but what I ask of the applicant is to reconsider this location, because I don't really think that this neighborhood can handle it. It has nothing to do with the legal license shops in our area. It has to do with the conditions on 36, specifically between 7th and 8th Avenue.
Brian, while I have you, what would you say to the argument that replacing a bad actor like Weed World with a licensed operator would be an overall benefit to the area instead of a detriment? How would you answer that?
I'm actually glad you asked that question. There is discussion with state legislation right now to not allow applicants to seek locations that were previously inhabited by unlicensed shops. In the wake of COVID, we had a lot of significant retail vacancy in our neighborhood, and a lot of bad players moved in. And it's been an ongoing discussion with Senator Hoylman, Assemblymember Simone, about looking at legislative ways that we don't just substitute illegal locations with legal ones. While I appreciate that legal operations are 180 degrees different than the illegal ones, that the setup of the stores is different, that they must comply to laws, it is still not something that the community needs at this specific location.
All right, Brian, stay on the line.
Sure.
Or I'm going to ask you a very specific question. Don't go into testimony, just answer the question. So if this applicant did not take over the Weed World space, you said that you were going to evict Weed World. If you didn't evict Weed World, if this operation did not take its place, what would happen at that location? Mark?
Oh, I mean, I can't even imagine what the landlord would choose to do. Thankfully, he's choosing to put a licensed, highly regulated, safe business in there. But if it wasn't us, why wouldn't he I mean, and I'm speculating because I can't speak for the landlord, but why wouldn't he stay with Weed World? They're making so much money. I bet they're paying rent in cash, I would guess. I mean, why wouldn't he? It's really, you know, I can't even really answer that. Except to think, why wouldn't he continue doing what he's doing? His rent's getting paid, right?
Okay, thank you.
Just one thing to that.
Go ahead, Brian.
Midtown South Precinct Council works very closely with the DA's office, notifying of illegal operators. Weed World is on their radar, obviously. I know that regardless of who goes in there next, whether it is business bars representing here today, Weed World will be shut down. When, who knows, but it's something that is a work in progress, as is the other unlicensed vendors. And again, like I said, this is not a comment on the applicant. It's just a comment on the location.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Can I say something else?
No. Next up will be Barbara Blair. Barbara, I'm going to promote you, so please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. There you are, Barbara. Thank you for joining us. Please remind everyone who you are.
Hello, my name's Barbara Blair. I'm the president of the Garment District Alliance. The GDA is not opposed to legal dispensaries that operate with vigilant New York State oversight. It is clear that the state has not shown any ability to manage the process of making cannabis legally available to consumers. The rollout of legal cannabis dispensaries has been wholly flawed and has further decimated the Garment District, which is already a neighborhood oversaturated with social service entities that serve individuals with addiction and mental health challenges. As a neighborhood anchored by Penn Station, Port Authority, the Times Square subway hub, populations arrive in the Garment District interested in the entertainment value of cannabis or access Midtown for drugs, harm reduction, or other services. We met with the applicant Erudito Herbal, who seeks to operate at 480 7th Avenue. They appear to be a qualified candidate for a license and have presented a plan that appears to address community concerns, so we do not oppose this applicant. However, it does not appear that any consideration for other neighborhood uses or conditions were taken into consideration when selecting this location. We did not meet with any representatives from the proposed 1412 Broadway location, and we have the same concerns. The conditions on the plazas on Broadway have been extremely problematic with rampant drug use and sales.
Barbara, I'm gonna have to interrupt you. We've closed the 1412 discussion already, so if you could just stick to 487th Avenue.
Yeah, okay. We firmly reiterate that the state, city, community boards, DCP, and virtually all our elected officials must codify rational sightings for shelters, harm reduction entities, and now cannabis dispensaries to assure fair share. All these uses bring vulnerable populations into a neighborhood, and the city and state have allowed an open marketplace for them to be preyed upon. Without a fair share analysis of neighborhood uses and conditions, and without any apparent effort to remove illegal operators, we cannot support the placement of any entities that bring vulnerable populations to the district, and hence diminish its ability to be a thriving area to locate a business, to live in, or to visit.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other members from the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand now. Seeing none, I'll put the committee into a business session. During the business session, only members of the committee can discuss the application. No further comment from the public or the applicant is appropriate unless requested by the chair. Before we start the business session, I'll invite Mar, who wanted to say something during the public session. Mar, you have a brief time to tell us your response.
I wanted to clarify that those really invaluable golden lists of social services in the area and illicit dispensaries actually came from the Garment District Alliance. So you guys can thank them for those. They are invaluable to us. And I want you to know that nobody is going to work harder to get the illicit dispensaries closed because they should be.
Thank you, Mar. Okay, let's start the business session. Does anyone have an opening comment? Todd?
Okay, so we see what the issue is. The issue is that there's so many, the choice of place to the people in the community, given the current reality, is, I would say, in opposition in a big way to our move to give an approval if we choose to do so. That's the reality of it. The abstract, our jurisdiction, which is, Nick, you've done a good job of keeping things focused, is whether or not the applicants fall into conformity within our resolution and also the states. So there's a tension there. I don't know what to say, based on, and again, one thing I hope everybody will realize is this is the applicant. They delivered to us a list of 14 sites of illegal places in the neighborhood, and also a list of all of the therapeutic locations, right? So we have that. They're not they're not breaking the rules about distance, but they're all there, right?
So that's an interesting point for us to consider. And this is why we review these applications, and this is why we apply discretion to the guidelines. And I think, so the question for the committee is, so on its face, the guidelines say if there is a harm reduction facility within 500 feet, that's an automatic no. What's left for our interpretation is whether, although there aren't any within 500 feet, there are 14 harm reduction facilities in that general area.
And 1,000, we have the 1,000 square foot limitation on, other legal dispensaries.
Are there others within 1,000?
No, there aren't, but it could be that will be a similar issue at some point as.
Yeah, no, we can't consider that. The thing that I think, if I can focus the committee, our decision has to be, although there isn't a single harm reduction facility within 500 feet, does the fact that this area generally is home to harm reduction facilities so densely, where do we end up with respect to that and the appropriateness of this location? That's the question for this committee. Samir?
That is a very good point. There are a lot of harm reduction facilities in the area, maybe not within 500 feet. It is my opinion that we should be, how do I phrase this? We want legal businesses to thrive. We want them to do well. If there are so many harm reduction facilities in the nearby area, it is very unlikely that another location would not be within 500 feet of them. And because this one is not within 500 feet of any of those 14, I think it is very important that we approve this, because any other location is very likely to be within 500 feet of one of the 14.
Okay, Zona?
I would agree with Samir. I'm broadly supportive of the applicant. From what we've heard, they've been earnest and engaging with the community. In addition, there's certainly an element of being a regulated operator and the context of what else is going on in that neighborhood. From the perspective of the letter of our guidelines, they fall within them. And I think in terms of the spirit of what the state is envisioning with destigmatizing cannabis and providing opportunities for folks who have been involved, I think it's a meaningful step to potentially approve.
Does anyone disagree with?
I don't disagree. I just want to make a comment. It's Catherine. So the other part of this is this location with a legal operator doesn't add or take away from the very grave problem that has persisted for a long period of time, and may offer an opening to strategically address what has existed in, you know, a lot of problematic behavior that is taking place on the street. This has been a long time. I don't think they add or take away from that in their location. There is the potential, though, to strategically do something to address, which is beyond the discussion here.
Got it. Okay, does anyone disagree with what's been said so far? Okay, so I'm sensing a consensus that we would approve this application because it's in compliance with our guideline, the letter of the guidelines, and that the spirit of the guidelines would approve an application like this because it would remove a bad actor and give us potential for improvement. And at worst, it wouldn't be any worse. Does anyone disagree with that observation? Okay, Todd, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve this venue.
So would you phrase that as a denial unless the operator agrees to all of the restrictions regarding hours of operation, method of operation,
Yes.
and our standard stipulations?
Motion to approve.
Deny unless.
To deny unless the applicant subscribes to all of our conditions and limitations subject to the community board 5's resolutions and the state's regulations.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, David, take it to a vote.
Nick Gastineau,
Yes.
David Thigman is a yes, Seth Borden,
Yes.
Catherine Ellington,
Yes.
Bill Gartland,
Yes.
Libby Hutton,
Yes.
Samir Lavingia,
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro,
Yes.
Iran Noti Victor.
Yes.
Tiffany Rivas,
Yes.
Todd Shapiro,
Yes.
Zona Shu,
Yes.
Janice Young,
Yes.
Alan Yu,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, so again, you know, I urge
Thank
the
you.
Thank you. I urge the operator to continue their outreach to the stakeholders. And I thank Brian and Barbara for their participation, and we hope that you will stay vigilant with this application and the others in the area. Next up, we will hear Bar 17, doing business as Lost Spirits, 11 West 17th Street. They are coming to us with an application to extend their operating hours until 4 a.m. Monday through Sunday. As by way of background, who just left?
Todd is back to the restroom.
Okay. By way of background, I will remind the committee that this applicant came to us in April of 22, just about a year ago. And they agreed to various stipulations, including hours of operation no later than 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday and 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. And as is their right, they're coming back to us now for reconsideration. I will put this in some context. We do get requests for reconsideration fairly frequently. What we do expect that in order to change the terms of an affidavit, especially hours of operation, we need overwhelming community support. Let's hear who's going to present this.
That's really.
Christopher, so let's hear from you about this application.
Okay, so again, sorry, it's Bar 17, Lost Spirits, 11 West 17th Street. It's on 17th, close to 5th Avenue between 5th and 6th. It's about 2,000 square feet, approximately divided between 2 floors. Capacity 97 people. There's food service and one bar. As Nick mentioned, it is open from until 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday and until 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. Their current request is to be open until 4 a.m. Monday through Sunday, so that means all 7 days. Their request came with 21 signatures in the letter from community members in support.
Christopher, I did look at those letters of support, and I found maybe one of them was from a resident on the block. The rest were from patrons that live all over the city, and there were some other business operators that signed that as well.
Yes, that's true.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I did notice that they were mostly other businesses. There is, yeah, a resident on the list, but yeah. And then I guess the other form of public comment came to the office, and Catherine held a meeting with community members that I attended. And just to characterize that as a summary, although all the comments are available, there was no support from any resident at those meetings for among the comments for a 4 a.m. closing time. There are also 6 311 calls that were brought to the attention of I guess both Catherine and myself that were complaining about noise outside.
So to summarize the community response, you're saying not only is there a lack of support for extending the hours, there are complaints about the current method of operation and the disturbance that they're causing presently.
Yes,
Is that right?
Complaints were raised about the current method of operation, although again, it wasn't that the majority of those complaints were, there was like overwhelming set of complaints, but there were some complaints about the current method of operation. There was also support expressed for the current method of operation at the meeting that I attended.
Got it. Okay. Anything from the committee before we go to the applicant?
So this is Catherine. So I did hold the community meeting and I did follow the comments from the neighbors who are, many of them may be sitting and listening to the hearing now. And I do want to distinguish that most of the community really does want to see the operator thrive and survive, and are really just still not satisfied with the hours, the noise. It's not, so in some cases there have been some comments about crowds, but it's mostly about the lingering outside and the lateness combined with the lateness of the hour that creates voices moving throughout the block. And I will say that we heard just about from every building that is within 500 feet. So 10, 14, 15, 16, West 17th Street has, the 17th Street residential community has spoken pretty candidly about the existing hours and being challenging, and just surprised that the applicant wants to change hours to something later.
Okay, the only other question I have before we give the applicant an opportunity to speak, what are the hours of operation for the other operations on the block that we've approved? What is our precedent in this location?
I mean, we have never approved anyone beyond 2 a.m.
Okay. All right, anything from the committee before we go to the applicant? Would the applicant like to address the committee? Please introduce yourselves. Who's here from the applicant tonight?
The mayor is here. He should be promoted. I think he's sitting outside.
He's
in
in.
the, okay.
Okay, Tamir, we can't hear you. No. No. Check your audio settings. What's your input method? No. Go on, Tamir. Anyone read sign language?
We could also suggest that he dial in. He could call in if he needs to. Yeah.
Okay. Is Tamir by himself, or are there any other members of his team?
Just Amir, as far as I know.
Okay, so we'll have to give him some leeway to sign in. Okay, try now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened with the computer.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tamer. I'm one of the owners at Lost Spirits at 11 West 17th Street. We, like you mentioned, we have applied last year, and we got the 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. And we were asked to come back again within a year to be reconsidered for the 4 a.m. I know you guys have asked who in the neighborhood or on the block that has been operating past 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. There is 2 bars on the block. One of them is, I believe they have a 4 a.m. license. Actually, both of them have 4 a.m. license. One of them closes usually around 3 o'clock, and the other one, depending on the day, they close anywhere between 2 to 4 a.m., depending on how busy they are. We have submitted, and I believe there was a miscount, unless you guys didn't receive all my petitions. I think I submitted to roughly about 33 signatures. Most of them were from businesses around us, yes, and there was across the street from us and our building as well. And a couple of people that live down the block, right on 16th Street and 7th on 6th Avenue, and some on like 5th Avenue. We feel that our clientele is distinguished clientele, and we are not like a bar that brings in a lot of young kids that are running around. And as far as the noise outside, we are trying to monitor any complaints or any disturbance outside to make people go away. And if we do get the 4 a.m., we will have somebody outside specifically to control any people that are gathering outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything from the committee before I go to the public? Would any members of the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand now. Michael, I'm going to promote you to panelist. Please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Okay, Michael, you want to tell us who you are?
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Reef. I am a resident at 17 West 17th Street. I am also president of the board of the building at 17 West 17th Street. So I speak on behalf of all the residents. Our building is a mixed-use building, so we have half the building are residents and half the building is commercial use. And so the comments that I provided during the session, which I thought was very helpful, and I appreciate the community board running that neighborhood session last week, was that we weren't in support of the 4 a.m. simply because of the noise, that there was concern. But we did express our very much our support for the business. We believe they're running the business very well. There are times, and it could happen on any given business, where you can have some degree of disruption from time to time. Unfortunately, our block has a degree of echo because of the cavernous of the block, and so sound travels up the buildings very easily, and people do get disturbed in the middle of the night. And I should point out that a number of the residents have bedrooms that are actually facing 17th Street, which is why they were concerned about having the establishment run that much later to 4 a.m. So let me just sort of say we're very supportive of the business. I would encourage them maybe to think about doing some experiments, or maybe looking at different ways of adding hours. But to 4 a.m. at this stage, we were not in agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand now. Seeing none, I'll put the committee into business session. During the business session, no further input from the public or the applicant is appropriate unless requested by the chair. Any comments from the committee? Samir,
So, I forgot his name. He's not there anymore.
speak up.
One of the speakers of the public said that they do not support 4 AM closing, but would be open to experimenting with the hours, just not until 4 AM. I guess they're gone now, but, I would have liked to know what they meant by that. Like, if not 4 AM, would they have been okay with 3 AM? Like, what did they mean by experiment?
So, even if the residents would consider playing with the hours, as he said, we do have precedent on that block. And playing with the hours for one operator opens up a can of worms for all of the other operators on that block. And as I understand it, this street, 17th Street between 5th and 6th is very dense with operations. We've seen several applications on that block on this committee alone in the past couple of months. So I think playing with that delicate balance would really be problematic. And it would create a precedent that we would really have to grapple with. Allowing different operations to play with hours in different ways.
So I just quickly look, there is already an operator on that block called Baby Grand that is open till 3 AM.
So Baby Grand is an exception because Community Board 5 did not weigh in on that application.
Got it.
So we don't consider Baby Grand one of our precedents. They're an outlier. Every other operation on that block that we did weigh in on, all of our precedents are within the 2 AM hour.
Got it. Thank you.
Christopher, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry, from the committee meeting with, I believe his name is Bill, who spoke. The only other hour discussion, the discussion about hours was like 10 AM lunchtime kind of time period, not not in the nighttime. So it was not like some compromise between 4 AM and 2 AM. It was just like, why don't you serve lunch?
Got it.
Instead of.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Just so
Thank
we
you.
know.
Anything else from the committee? All right, so I'm getting the sense that there's a consensus about denying the request for further hours based on community feedback and in support of our precedent. Does anyone disagree with that observation? Okay, Christopher, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to deny the request.
Okay, take it to a vote.
Nick Apdale,
Yes.
David Sigmund is a yes, Seth Gordon,
Yes.
Catherine Ellington,
Yes.
Bill Gartland,
Yes.
Libby Hutton,
Yes.
Samir Lavingia,
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro,
Yes.
Yaron Noti Victor,
Yes.
Tiffany Rivas,
Yes.
Todd Shapiro,
Yes.
Zona Shu,
Yes.
Janice Young,
Yes.
Alan Yu,
Yes.
it passes.
Okay, Tamara, if you're still on, I would encourage you to address some of the issues that have been raised tonight about the crowds outside, the noise outside, and those issues that are within your control. I think that would go a long way to improving your relationship with the residents, although it seems that they do like you, despite the opposition to increasing your hours. So if you could just work on those few issues, I think that would be good for us all. Next application. Grymore Group at 133 West 30th Street. So this is another reconsideration. The applicant was before us in June this year, just a few months ago. And if you haven't read this resolution, this application, the initial application was strenuously denied because of bad actions on the part of the applicant, holding private parties, mayhem in the street. There was really a lot of testimony from the residents against this application, and it was denied unanimously. They've come back now asking for a wine and beer license instead of full liquor. And we'll ask the applicant about that. One of the main reasons applicants do that is because full liquor falls under the 500-foot rule. With the SLA, it's part of the law. There's somewhat different standards for full liquor than there are wine and beer. Some applicants think it's much easier to get a wine and beer license, and then they just apply to upgrade to full liquor. So it's sort of a stepping stone. But we'll ask the applicant to introduce themselves. Who's here?
Ben Savitsky of Ernst & Young Savitsky on behalf of the Gray Orme Group. Also, Ed Shaheen should be on as well. He is the applicant and operator.
Ben, it's great to see you.
How are you?
Thank you for joining us tonight. We don't see
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you for having us, and I want to thank the community board for organizing some meetings before this.
We don't see you very often, Ben. That's probably a good thing.
I think so.
Okay. And who else is with the team?
Ed Shaheen, he should be on. He should be a panelist.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Andrew, I see you now.
Savitsky.
Okay.
That's actually Ed. Andrew is a co-applicant who unfortunately due to scheduling conflict could not be here tonight.
Okay, so Ed, we'll miss you. Who's going to present this application?
I am.
Okay, Janice, take it away.
Okay, so the applicant from our group, LLC, doing business as Beyond Road.
Can you speak up? It's hard to hear you online.
Sure. The applicant from our group, LLC, doing business as Beyond Rose, which is to open a restaurant and bar that will provide an immersive dining experience with timed seatings, a late night lounge, private events, and ticketed exhibitions and installations. As you said, they are requesting a beer and wine license, which is the change from the full liquor license that the applicant had originally applied for, and that we denied. This time, the applicant is asking for 2 a.m. Sunday through Thursday and 4 a.m. Friday to Saturday closing hours. The space consists of the ground floor, which is about 4,000 square feet. The mezzanine and basement will be used for administrative purposes only. The current occupancy is 74, though the applicant has applied for an occupancy of 250. As of right now, it will contain 17 tables, 53 chairs, and 9 bar stools. There will be a partial kitchen for the intended sushi menu. There will be no sidewalk cafe or other outside area. Typical operations will involve 1.5 hour seatings at 6:30, 8:30, and 10:30 p.m., along with a lounge that will be open to the public from 10 p.m. until close. Private events may include corporate functions, weddings, and ticketed exhibitions, such as holiday experiences and sake tastings, where guests are either invited or can purchase tickets to attend. Private events can be any day of the week, while ticketed exhibitions and installations will primarily occur on weekends and are designated evenings. Ticketed events will involve guests arriving and leaving within specified windows of time. The applicant has stated that the space is not able to offer internal queuing at this time, and that their intent is to have security encourage patrons to not queue on the street while waiting to enter. Ticketed events will be promoted through their website, social media, and local event listings, and they will engage the services of event teams such as Fever, Amex Presents, and Secret NYC. Marketing and promotional materials will be funneled through multiple internal and external third-party channels. Music will include a live DJ and recorded music played at both background and entertainment levels. The applicant is partnering with Acoustic Block to install soundproofing and with Castillo Security Services for security and crowd and traffic control. Regarding community feedback on this revised application, as with last time, following community meeting between the applicant and the community, which includes the residents of the condo building across the street from the establishment and the 29th Street Association, the community has expressed serious concerns with the proposed method of operation, despite revisions concerning the following. So the 2 a.m., 4 a.m. closing hours exceed the community standard of 1 a.m., 2 a.m. closing time, and actually reflect a backtracking from the original application of 2 a.m., 3 a.m. closing hours. The proposed method of operation of timed seatings and ticketed events still encourage a large number of patrons to arrive and depart the premises simultaneously multiple times a night. In regard to traffic and crowd control, the applicant has engaged the services of a security company to help direct crowds and vehicles and claims to be working with the hotel next door to share their pickup drop-off location on the street. However, the street, as a reminder, suffers from existing congestion on this block due to NYPD traffic task force vehicles being parked diagonally all along the road and on the sidewalk. And the community as a whole still does not feel a thorough plan has been presented regarding how to prevent non-conforming on the street and the noise and congestion from patrons entering and leaving the establishment. And lastly, as mentioned last time, the residents have also had to deal with a number of pop-up parties that occurred over the past year in the applicant space, and that resulted in large crowds and rowdy behavior that disrupted quality of life on the block. And the applicant continues to shift blame to third-party promoters who they sublease their space to, while still intending to use third-party promoters for marketing purposes. So in some, the community feels their concerns regarding the hours and crowd control, which have existed since the initial application, have not been addressed at all with this revised application, and are in fact more concerned that the applicant continues to not understand the concerns of the neighborhood or be willing to cooperate in a productive way.
Anything from the committee before we go to the operator? Okay, would the applicant like to make any comments?
Sure. So thank you again for having us and also for the meeting beforehand. What I'd like to note is that the applicant has heard the community on this. We are reducing to a beer or wine license. We think that is less problematic to the community and is a show of good faith that we are willing to work with the community. Additionally,
Ben, let me ask you about that. So many people are concerned that the beer and wine application is really a mere stepping stone for a future alteration to full liquor. Would the applicant be willing to stipulate that they will not apply for full liquor, that they will keep beer and wine?
no, I don't think we'd be willing to stipulate to that, but I think, well, I mean, the idea is that we are showing the community that we are going to be a positive contributor to the community and that we are going to be responsible. I think beer and wine is a good way to start that. And we can have the conversation later when we apply. Obviously, we're going to have to come back to you and apply if we want to do a class change.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to mention that I think we have heard the community. I think there was a statement made that we haven't been listening to the community. We do have a security plan. We are going to have security that is outside during non-restaurant operations. That is going to direct people to 6th and 7th Avenue, escort people to 6th and 7th Avenue, and make sure that people are not queuing up outside of the restaurant, but instead are moving along and not creating a disturbance. Additionally, as was mentioned, we are working with the hotel next door to make sure that we have a combined pickup and drop-off location for private vehicles and also taxis. We've also met with the NYPD and the traffic enforcement facility across the street, and they are more than happy to help us with any traffic concerns if we think that there is an issue. So we have developed a good relationship with them already. I think that shows that we are working towards something here. Additionally, from the last application, it was pretty much different. We were proposing an event space last time. This is a restaurant and bar. The majority of the time, this is going to be operated as a restaurant and bar. Our initial occupancy is 74, and it is primarily going to be reservation only. It is a omakase menu of sushi and sashimi, and the idea behind that is that it's prefixed. People who come in are going to be staying for an hour and a half. They're going to be enjoying the experience. If it's an immersive experience, and I can tell you a little bit more about that. And then they're going to be leaving. This isn't a situation where we're expecting to have groups and groups and groups of people on the street at all hours. It's pretty well structured.
So Ben, about the capacity, you said that it's a good thing that the capacity is only 74. Would the applicant stipulate to keeping the capacity at 74, or do they intend to continue seeking capacity of 250?
The capacity right now is 74. That is what the Department of Buildings allows. We are submitting an application to increase the capacity. Right now, we are only licensing the ground floor. The mezzanine is not part of this. The cellar is not part of this. The ground floor and the occupancy right now is 74.
Would the applicant agree to keep the capacity at 74?
Ed, you'd have to answer that.
No, our landlord actually wants an increased occupancy.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anything from the committee before we go to the public?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if the applicant could comment more on the private events and what they envision outside of the seated omakase menu.
Okay, did you hear the question?
Right. So private events are going to be any normal private event that a restaurant would have. It could be something like a birthday party. It could be a bar mitzvah. It could be a wedding. It could be a corporate event. Ed, do you want to provide additional information about the events?
Yeah, an example of one of the events could be like the Hanabi Festival that Zuma has. It's a seasonal menu, seasonal cocktails, special dishes prepared, certain decor, certain, lighting. It's basically just transformative pop-up event, but it's very food-based and it's, just an event.
Great. Anything else from the committee? Would anyone from the public like to comment on this application? Please use the raised hand button now. David, you'll be first. We're going to upgrade you to panelist. Please turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Here we go. Can you see me?
Yes, David, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm David Schrader, and I live at the Cass Gilbert, the condominium building that's directly across the street from the subject space. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak on this revised application. For nearly 10 years, I've worked with Community Board 5 and the 29th Street Association to balance the needs of businesses and residents in our area. We've done this by maintaining consistent standard operating hours and methods for all licensees. Rather than restricting change, what we've seen is the area flourish with new residential buildings, restaurants, retail, and other development. Our particular block is home to 2 residential buildings, a hotel, retail and office space, a synagogue, a school, and 4 restaurants with liquor licenses, with another one preparing to open at 151 West 30th. Unusually, as Janice mentioned, the street is very constricted by MIPD's citywide task force, traffic task force vehicles parked all along the north and south curbs. The sidewalk on the south side is reduced to a path of about 3 feet wide because the vehicles are parked angularly. But I would also note that all of the existing restaurants are good neighbors and comply with area standards and close by 1 or 2 o'clock. This applicant seeks to override our area standards and set a new precedent. They want to operate until 4 o'clock in the morning. The number of people that they want to bring into a large space is going to disrupt our quality of life with more traffic congestion, crowds, and late night noise. This 133 West 30th location is not an appropriate site for this establishment as it's proposed, and I respectfully ask that you deny this application.
Thank you, David. Next up will be Christy. Christy, same for you. We're going to promote you to panelist. Please turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, tell us who you are.
My name is Christy Lopez Bernal. I'm a resident and president of the board at the Cass Gilbert, which is the condo across the street. I'm going to speak on behalf of both myself and the entire community that I serve, which is a community of over 200 people with a synagogue in our commercial space. We recognize that we live in the middle of a mixed-use evolving community, and we welcome business operators seeking to add to this vibrant mix. We ask that applicants conform to area operating standards, including closing hours of 1 a.m. on weekdays and 2 a.m. on weekends, managing patrons to keep our block clear given the NYPD vehicles on our block, and having a contact person who can be easily reached to resolve issues. We don't believe that the area standards restrict legitimate business activity on our block. There are currently 4 licensees on our block, and they are all operating responsibly within our standards and hours. Unfortunately, this applicant, who has a history in the nightlife industry and of hosting rowdy parties in Montauk, is unwilling to meet these area standards. Most crucially, they have reapplied to operate until 2 a.m. on weeknights and 4 a.m. on weekends, despite claiming to be primarily operating as a restaurant. We have serious concerns about crowds and late night noise. While the applicant space is currently permitted for 74 occupants, they're looking to increase to 250 occupants, meaning that the operation could add 1,000 or more people on our streets and sidewalks on weekend nights, often arriving and departing simultaneously. Since initially leasing the space in August, this applicant has allowed several raucous parties to occur in the space, with loud, intoxicated patrons gathering and loitering on our sidewalks and streets until the middle of the night. We found patrons of these parties sitting inside of our building's planters, throwing up on our building sidewalks and in front of the synagogue, and leaving trash in our entryway. We had to call the NYPD because of rowdy behavior on the part of patrons. Additionally, we were unable to contact anyone associated with the space despite repeated requests. I want to particularly point out that the co-applicant for this space, Andrew, has not shown up to this meeting, and he also did not show up to the community meeting organized by CB5. So apparently he has more important things to do. We do not have confidence that this applicant appreciates the impact their operation would have on our block, and we do not support this application.
Thank you, Christy. Next up, Connor. Connor, please turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair. Yes, good evening. My name is Connor Foley. I'm a resident in the Cass Gilbert. I'm a neighbour to David and Christy, and I'm joining to lend my support and to support their comments. I'll keep my comments brief. I expect many of my neighbours may wish to comment as well, but we would encourage the council to reject this application. And indeed, I won't add more to what David and Christy have already said, other than to say, I think you can take everything you need from the applicant's presentation tonight. And I find it very difficult to reconcile any good words with the requirement to keep the business open till 4 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Next up, Leslie Hendricks. Leslie, please turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Got it.
There
Hey,
you are. Leslie, tell us who you are.
my name's Leslie Hendricks. I'm a member of the 29th Street Neighborhood Association. I actually wrote an additional letter in on this applicant because I read the additional information on the method of operation, and I don't see that it works even with a wine and beer license, because the applicant is saying that they're going to be 3, no longer will it be private events only, but it will be 3 seated dinners timed at 6:30, 8:30, and 10:30 for 90 minutes. Because it is an immersive dinner with an interactive experience. So this means that you have 75 people leaving and you have 75 people coming in at the same time on a really, really narrow sidewalk, and a security person is going to be telling people who were queued up for the next seating to go down the block, and he's going to be telling people to go to the avenues to get a taxi. So I don't know how you can do that in half an hour. It is more like a jazz club where you have different sets, and I don't see how you can do that in half an hour with that number of people. So to me, the model is fundamentally flawed no matter what the liquor license is for. And my other problem is that they want to increase the capacity. So I don't even know how you do a dinner if you up the capacity by 300%. So to me, it just seems like the wrong location for what they want to do, period. I'm not even going to address the late hours. That's been addressed by other people. I agree, but I don't see that the setup is ever going to be anything other than chaos. And I think that needs to be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next up will be Serge. Serge, please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Serge, tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Serge Harnett. I'm also, like Leslie, a member of the 29th Street Neighborhood Association. I'm also president of the 13th Precinct Community Council. And the things that, there are so many things about this that are flagging red. The ticketed events, the number of people, that street has really evolved beautifully. There are so many well-run restaurants, and then to put something like this there with these hours is just crazy. I mean, I wouldn't care if they were applying for a graham cracker and orange juice license. I would say no. I think that this is the wrong place, wrong time. And having a lot of experience with the police, this would become what they call a hotspot. And that is not what the city needs right now. The good operators that are there are doing a great job. I feel for these residents. Their bedrooms are facing right across the street. I've seen the videos as CB5. You've seen them before. This would be that times 10. It would be so much worse. So everyone has said my points. I just wanted to put that in, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Serge. Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand now. Okay, before we go into business session, Andrew, I see you have your hand up. You may speak.
Hi, I'm actually Ed, not Andrew. It was actually Ed, but I just wanted to say that for over a year.
I'm sorry, Andrew. So you know you're not Andrew. Tell us your name again.
Ed Shaheen.
Okay, Ed, because your name says Andrew there.
Yeah, I was using his link. I wasn't forwarded a link. I apologize.
Got it. Okay, we have that right now for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that for the past year, we've been trying to work out some sort of, happy medium with the community. We really do want to be a welcome part of the community. We've expressed we're amenable on hours, any other issues, any point of contention. We're willing to work with the community. I also want to comment that the 3-seat portion, that's just one example of a pop-up event we gave. That's actually not how we're planning on operating. I think like Ben said earlier, we're planning on being a regular restaurant and bar. We thought it would be, appropriate to mention that we do plan to have events and exhibitions, like Ben said, but that's not the standard operation method. And again, we've for over a year have not done a single event. We've tried to work with the community, and we really do wish to be a welcome part of the community. So if there's anything that helps alleviate concerns, we're here to work with that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, I'll put the committee into business session now. During the business session, no further input from the applicant or the public is appropriate unless requested by the chair. I'll just do a quick summary to start off the conversation. So the main concerns that I'm hearing, that the method of operation is really not appropriate for this location. Despite the fact that they're asking for hours that are really in excess of what's appropriate and what's considered for this location, even if they did comply with the standard hours on this block, the method of operation in and of itself would not be appropriate for this location. We've heard some concerns about the capacity of the restaurant. Currently 74, the operator would not agree to keep it at 74. They're pursuing an application to increase the capacity to 70 to 250. And also regarding the fact that this is an easy breezy beer and wine license, the applicant would not agree to keep it as a beer and wine license. They do intend to upgrade to full liquor. Comments from the committee? Libby.
I guess I have a question, because they have been having events or subcontracting out events is what was said. I was confused with the applicant. I said about not having had an event for a year.
I think the events that they were referring to were the ones that happened last year.
Okay. I guess that's the part of it that also seems like on top of it to be like the biggest issue of like sort of like bad faith actors. If there doesn't seem to be any sort of remedy to that part of when we denied it initially, about the private event space. So they haven't that use, they haven't really addressed what they would do differently to make sure it doesn't repeat itself. If anything, it seems potentially worse.
Anything else? Anyone else? All right, so I'm sensing that the committee agrees with the concerns of the residents about the method of operation and the hours. Does anyone disagree with that observation? Who presented this? Janice, would you like to make a motion?
Motion to deny.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take to a vote?
Nick Attanale?
Yes.
David Sigmund is a yes. Seth Gordon?
Yes.
Catherine Ellington?
Yes.
Bill Gartland?
Yes.
Libby Hutton?
Yes.
Samir Lavingia?
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro?
Yes.
Yaron Noti Victor?
Yes.
Tiffany Rivas?
Yes.
Todd Shapiro?
Yes.
Zona Shu?
Yes.
Janice Young?
Yes.
Alan Yu?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, thank you, Ben, applicant. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the time. Have a good night.
You too. Last application, we're under 2 hours, I have to note. Last application is Metro Cinema, 35 East 21st Street. So this is an interesting application. This is an application for a new liquor license in our restricted licensing area. So CB5 has a policy for the restricted licensing area, which is an area of significant density of residents and liquor licensed establishments. This restricted licensing area has a very long history of issues and conflict between liquor licenses and residents. So CB5, going back to 1997, has been dealing with the issues in this area. I think it was brought about by zoning changes that were made in the Flatiron District that brought residential use to what was otherwise a barren land of commercial and manufacturing zoning. So there were all these nightclubs and bars, and it was really a hot spot of entertainment. And then the zoning change allowed all these residents to move in, and we saw nothing but problems. So Community Board 5 established the predecessor to the restricted licensing area that imposes certain requirements on applications in this location to sort of balance the interests between operators and the residents. And I think in the decade or so that we've been working with the RLA guidelines, we have really established a very good balance. The issues that we hear of are few and far between, and we've been able to apply our standards consistently in the area to ensure that that balance remains. Basically, the RLA guidelines require the premises to contain not more than 4,000 square feet, include a full kitchen, and with hours of operation Sunday through Wednesday, last call at midnight, Thursday through Saturday, last call at 1 a.m. The present application is interesting to me because the RLA guidelines were really designed to address nightclubs, bars, and restaurants. This is a movie theater, like a dinner movie theater, which is a little bit different. And I think what this committee is going to have to grapple with is, do we care that it's a movie theater? Is that method of operation different enough for us to make some sort of exception under the guidelines? Or is this really a restaurant that's showing movies, in which case the guidelines would really apply and that this is not the proper location for it? So I think that sort of sets up what we need to discuss tonight, because this application exceeds the guidelines in capacity, in patronage, in space. I think this is like 19,000 square feet, whereas the RA guidelines require 4,000 square feet. And the hours of operation that they're requesting exceed the midnight and 1 a.m. that the guidelines require. So I think we're going to have to figure out, is the dinner and a show and a movie concept different enough to allow them to violate those requirements or not. So it should be interesting. Who's gonna present this?
Me, Seth.
Okay, Seth, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, as Nick said, this is Metro Cinema. They're at 35 East 21st Street, which is on 21st Street between Broadway and Park Avenue. On the street, there are, by my count, 11 residential buildings, so it is a fairly residential street. There are some commercial buildings as well. So the establishment is essentially a movie theater with a twist in that they also serve full dinner beforehand. So there's a lobby on the ground floor where there's going to be a bar area and seating. The lobby is 900 square feet approximately, and there's occupancy for 50 people there. They also said that during the day they'll serve coffee and pastries in the morning, and then at night it'll be wine and cocktails. And then the second and third floors are a total together of 8.8K square feet. And that's divided into cinema suites, which are small cinemas that people reserve for private viewings. And they're first served dinner, and then they watch a movie and can order drinks as they watch. The total seats between all of those micro theaters is 179 seats. So the community input is complicated for this one. So we had a community meeting where there was a very productive conversation around concerns the community had. And I think my general sense of the meeting was that there was definitely support for the general concept, and I think a willingness to compromise about this location. But there were concerns about several things. So they had karaoke as a potential use of the space was a concern. I will say the applicants agreed to stipulate no karaoke at the site. Residents were concerned about late alcohol service, particularly in the lobby area, but also in the theaters, and associated inebriated patrons afterwards. Then there were 4 hire vehicle pickups. 21st Street is already quite busy, according to residents. So the applicants did agree to set up pickup point on the avenue rather than on the street, but that was the concern. And then the final concern was noise during the shows. And they stressed the need for the sound testing to ensure that mitigation was in place. And after the meeting, also, I wanted to say that there was some outreach from residents on basically saying that they were changing their opinion from the meeting. So saying that they expressed that their first preference would be for Metro Cinema to not be on the block due to the issues that I just mentioned. So getting to the precedent, as Nick mentioned, RLA has last seating at midnight, Sunday through Wednesday, and 1 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. The guidelines mentioned that in the case of a restaurant, this would mean the latest the patron could sit down and place an order, with the understanding that patrons would leave and the operation lock up around 45 minutes to an hour later. So the applicants started at 3 a.m. each night. After the meeting, they came down a lot from there. So the latest they've agreed to now is 2 a.m. each night to have everyone out of the theaters. And then liquor service would stop at 1 a.m., so an hour earlier during the week, Sunday through Wednesday. And it would stay at 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. And then they also agreed that the lobby area, which is the one on the first floor facing the street, would close at midnight during the week and 1 in compliance with RLA hours. And then there was a second piece, the RLA guidelines say that 4,000 square feet of space was the max for patron use. We have just about 10,000, just under that for patron use in the space. So there's obviously not much they can do about that. And what folks will discuss as next step. That's all.
Anything from the committee before we go to the applicant?
I have 2 questions. If we do not approve, does the cinema just operate as is? They just don't serve alcohol?
I don't know.
Okay.
You have to ask.
And then the other question maybe for the applicant is just if non-ticket holders are able to buy alcohol in the lobby.
Yes, my understanding is that they are, the applicants can confirm or deny, but I think they are, but the primary purpose is to have a meeting area.
So the lobby's open to the public, just like a regular bar?
I think so. Yeah.
How big is the lobby area?
That's a good question. The lobby is 900 square feet.
Is there a capacity of just that area?
50 people, I think you said, 50 for the lobby.
That's right.
Samir,
I believe it was stated that there are gonna be like multiple individual cinema rooms. The expectation is they get booked out. How big are these cinema rooms? Like, is it like an Alamo Draft House where it's like 50, 100 people, or is it like 5 or 10?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's, I believe the median-ish would be 16, but I think that's influx. I think the applicants can correct me.
yeah, we'll get more information about that.
Yeah, sorry. So, and the theaters are solely for private booking. Like you can't just walk in and purchase a ticket and watch a movie.
That's the intent. Yeah, you would reserve an event.
I had the same question about whether it's like a birthday party of 16 people. What,
exactly?
it's not scheduled show times. I would have to be like, hi, I want to show a movie for my birthday. And then do I provide the movie, or are they offering certain movies that are out currently? Or is it stuff like, what are they sourcing? If there's a concern about it becoming some sort of like bar that shows movies, I feel like some of that might, like, how are they sourcing the films themselves? Is it like an art house cinema type thing too? Where you can request older things, or you want to show like your home movies to like your friends and family, and like, I don't know, dad wants a beer or something. It's different.
Good questions.
That's a good question. I think there are options. My understanding is that there is going to be a set offering, and then you can also request from a broader range of movies.
We'll get clarification from that. Later. Anything else from the committee before I go to the applicant? Todd?
So I'm very curious to hear from the applicant themselves. Do they conceive of this as an event venue or a specialty event venue that's going to be built?
Speak up.
Do they conceive of this? I'm eager to hear from the applicant as to the method of operation. Do they view this as like a specialty event venue where people rent really large rooms that are configured as, you know, mini theaters? Or is it for the general public? You know, how big are the rooms? How big is the turnover? You know, if we have that information, or if they know, you know, what the foot traffic is going to be in and out of the place, that I think will guide us in whether or not we should deviate from more normal standards for this block.
Anything else?
Can I say one more thing? I did want to mention that both the applicants and the community members that contributed here were very eager to engage, basically. So it was definitely good intentions on both sides. I did want to mention that the meeting was very, very smooth. Yeah.
Glad to hear that. Okay, I'll ask the applicant to introduce themselves. Who do we have?
Hey, everybody. This is Matt Colton from Helbron and Levy LLP. I'm here representing Metro Cinema 2 LLC. I have the two operators with me here. I have Mikey Trafton and Tim League. I'm going to kick it over to them to give the general spiel about the concept. I think that's going to answer a lot of the questions you guys had. And then if there's anything that needs cleaned up, I can answer some of the concerns that Seth was talking about earlier. So Mikey, Tim, want to introduce yourselves, your background, all that?
Sure. I'm Mikey Trafton. I am the CEO of Metro Cinema and was an executive at Alamo Draft House for several years prior. Tim?
My name's Tim League. I'm the founder of Alamo Draft House Cinema. Alamo has 40 locations nationwide, including 5 locations in New York. And I think I've got passed the baton to give you the spiel about what Metro Cinema is. And sort of the shorthand for me is Alamo Draft House was the movie theater I wanted when I was in my 20s, when we started out. This is the movie theater I want when I'm in my 50s, which is where I am. So it's to answer some of your questions. the average room size is about 8 persons. The maximum room size is 16. So there are no large rooms. The intent is this is a gathering spot for your friends to come and enjoy a movie with your friends. And the content primarily, while for sure we can allow you to show your home movies and such like that, it'll largely be the movies that are available in the market currently. We will have a small curated selection of classic movies that will, rotate probably on a monthly or quarterly basis, but predominantly, much like Alamo, our mix is about 65-70% big blockbuster movies like Barbie and Oppenheimer, about 20% independent and foreign films, about 10% classic films. And we imagine that's going to be about the mix that we have at Metro Cinema. The big difference between Alamo and Metro, other than the room sizes being very small, is the food program is going to be much more upscale. So Alamo is pizza and burgers. This is a multi-course dinner. We're looking at the Flatiron district largely because it's an amazing restaurant district, and we want to be a part of that. That's our aspiration and our aim. I also want to thank you just for contextualizing that this is different, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I do want to reiterate some of those things. The lounge we're talking about, the 50-person lounge, the intent of that is that we imagine groups are going to gather there, and when everybody in your party is together, we'll take you up to the second or third floor into your individual suite. Whereas, yes, if you come off the street, you could order a cocktail at the bar. That's really not its core purpose. It's designed and built to be able to accommodate groups to gather and then go into the private suites. And something that maybe wasn't addressed in terms of the sound. If there's one thing I'm an expert in after 30 years of doing this, is building very soundproof buildings. We're concerned about the sound from outside actually entering the suites. So there will be, no noise from any of the suites coming out onto the public space in the street outside. Again, it's 179 patrons in all of the screening rooms combined. We're not going to be at full occupancy, and we're going to be the most staggered you can possibly imagine. Movies will start every 10 minutes or so. On the exit side, there will be very small groups leaving sporadically, intermittently, and this is after a more upscale dinner. It's not a club. It's not a binge drinking environment. This is an upscale environment that we're trying to create. And the main thing I want to stress, and I mentioned Oppenheimer earlier, that I give you that as an example of why we're asking for an exception. There's the exception on the square footage, which I think is more clear in that it's 179 total patrons, which is much less than Cosme right next door. It's just we have screening rooms, which is a very inefficient use of space. So the number of people, I think we're in the spirit of that guideline is that you're not crowding a bunch of people in, and we physically can't do that just from our capacity. But Oppenheimer is the example I want to give for why we want to have this exception. We absolutely fine with closing down the public-facing lounge at the hours that comply with the district and the existing overlay. That's 100% fine with us. The problem is if we're not allowed to keep people in those private suites watching a movie for a movie like Oppenheimer, which is 180 minutes, that would mean that we can't really accommodate any screenings after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. on weekends to be able to comply with the existing. So what we're asking is not in the public-facing bar, but the specific exception is in the suites to be able to let those folks continue watching a movie until after that midnight and 1 a.m. on the weekends time frame. But as certainly a compromise, like there would be no seatings in any of the rooms after that midnight 1 a.m. time frame. But hopefully they could eat their dinner and then watch a 3-hour movie and get out whenever they need to get out. And so that's why we're asking for the exception of 2 a.m. weekdays, 3 a.m. weekends, but it's not in order to operate a business that has crowds of people arriving anytime after midnight or 1 a.m. on the weekends. So
So,
I'll
Tim,
pause
let me ask-
a lot there. So
Let me ask you a question. So would you be willing to do last call consistent with the guidelines? So last call, 1 a.m. and 2 a.m.? 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday, 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday, last call?
yeah, I believe so. Yeah. That would be that's sure. Absolutely.
And would you be willing to reduce the number of suites that you have opened past those times? So, how many suites would 4,000 square feet be?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I think by the nature of, since we have staggered show times, it's really what we're protecting against kind of is the edge cases, those like later ones for a 4-hour movie. So I think the bulk of our business is the dinner hour. The bulk of our business is going to be 7 or 8 o'clock show times, and then it's going to trickle down after
What
that.
what I'm trying to get at is late night arrival and departure. If you can limit the number of suites that you have available at those late hours, I think the community would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nicholas, I couldn't give you an exact number. I'd have to go kind of crunch it a little bit, but I think we would be in the spirit of that. We would absolutely be able to be willing to limit, the number of suites that remain open until the late hours.
So let's drill down on that and give us a physical picture of the space. So the lobby, the lounge, as you call it, is 900 square feet with a capacity of 50.
Yes.
Is that right?
More or less, the layout's not finalized, but more or less, yes.
Okay. And then the second
And if I could, just to paint a picture, the building lobby is a office building. And so there's a building lobby between the exterior doors and our interior space for that lounge. So the noise from the lounge, so to speak, has to kind of would have to go through the building lobby to get out into the street. So that's what the first floor is.
So describe the second floor.
The second floor contains our kitchen. And so maybe a third of it-ish is our kitchen. And then the rest are hallways, bathrooms, and the cinema suites, as we call them, the small screening rooms.
How many suites?
Let me just count them up for you. So on the second floor, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cinema suites and kitchen and bathrooms.
What's the capacity of those suites on the second floor? The 11 suites, how much capacity?
Let me get back to you on that. I'll count while we're talking about something else.
Okay, that's going to be relevant. And then
Okay.
describe the third floor to us.
The third floor is half of the second floor. The building is 2 buildings that were put together. We're taking all, of the second floor and half of the third floor. It is 7 cinema suites, and bathrooms and hallways.
Okay, so I want to know the capacity of those 7 suites as well.
Give me just a minute. Let's move on to another topic. Maybe Tim can answer while I count chairs.
Okay. Tim, tell us about queuing. So your lounge is interior. Where will you have queuing for all 179 capacity?
So well, first of all, it's going to be 100%, rounds to 100%, probably 99% online booking. This is not sort of an impulse decision. It's like a gathering to book a suite. And the lounge was designed such that at any given time, since the show times would be staggered every 10 minutes or so, that the queuing, if you will, would be at kind of a reserve table in the lounge. So it's like, oh, hey, the Smith party, you're here. You're the first ones here. We have a table set up for you. Why don't you wait for the rest of your party to arrive? And when they all arrive, you can go up to the suite. 100% of the queuing would happen in the lounge space. So not on the outside, and there's no line to get in to buy tickets like what you think of a kind of old-fashioned cinema.
Got it. And then I just want to confirm, I want to hear from you for the record that karaoke is off the table.
100% karaoke is off the table, will never be happening in the Metro Cinema Suite. The message was clear from the community, and we agreed to that at that community meeting. It was it was never really supposed to be a big part of what we do, as an offering maybe for private parties, and I regret having it on the application. So
okay.
Nicholas, I can give you those numbers.
I'm ready.
113 seats on the second floor and 66 seats on the third floor.
Okay. And would it be feasible for you to say during later hours, close the second floor and keep this third floor open, or vice versa?
I think I don't know if that's exactly how we would do it.
But okay, so if you're not doing it floor by floor, would it be possible for you to keep certain suites open later hours and close others?
Exactly. I think that is possible.
Okay.
We'd have to work out those details, but I think we'd be willing to compromise there.
Okay. Anything from the committee?
I had a question about sort of like screen size. That seems like, given like the point. Also, I'm a huge fan of the Alamo Drafthouse. I feel like I'm fangirling out pretty hard here. But I was wondering about the screen size because of that inefficient use of space. I don't have as much of a problem with our guidelines because this really is a movie theater, that only having like 113 seats with, what's the square footage again of that second floor total?
8.8 thousand, I think.
Yeah, that, and if our limit is 4,000, like how many people, if it's like a club? I mean, other than what I imagine might be like your own private float along movie, or to see the Eras Tour movie where there would be dancing. Those are the scenarios in which I see it being club-like, but for like me and 5 friends, not the type of public at large thing that the rules were really inspired by.
So you mentioned Cosme as your neighbor. Do you happen to know the capacity of Cosme?
I can't quote it offhand. I remember before the community meeting, I went over there and checked it on the plaque, and I can't remember, but I believe it was around 250. But don't hold me to that. I think it was more than 179 for sure.
Got it. Okay, that's what I was getting at.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the lounge is open to the public, we said, right? So if that fills up, like let's say it becomes really popular, which would be great, then where do the people waiting for their cinema suite go?
We're going to prioritize the cinema suite patrons, right? So we will reserve tables and areas for the folks waiting for their movie. So we would hold for that, and then what would happen is if there's no seats available, maybe I think there's maybe 6 seats at the bar. That would be the open capacity for people coming in off the street. So the priority is for the experience of our guests coming to see a movie, and then I'm not really that interested or concerned about walk up traffic looking for a cocktail.
Anything else from the committee? Would anyone from the public like to comment on this application? Please use the raise hand button now. We'll start with JP. JP, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can't see you.
Okay, now can you see me?
No.
I don't know how to turn it on. I'm on my phone.
Okay. Tell us who you are, JP. Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Thanks, I apologize.
Okay.
My name is
Joseph.
Gene Pay. I'm on the board of 260 Park Avenue South. We have 110 units. We're the largest residential building on the street. We are directly across, maybe by 10 feet, directly across from the theater, the proposed theater. And, you know, I think it's a very interesting concept, and I complimented the guys and their operating history. The only problem is we think that this doesn't belong on our block. The increased foot traffic, the late night departures, the noise that will be caused by potentially inebriated patrons that are leaving at, 3 o'clock in the morning after having watched, movies and having been served alcohol. This is not a block. Cosme is a 1 or 2 star Michelin restaurant. They're pretty much out by midnight. In fact, the entire block is out by midnight. So adding a new establishment, which now stays open last call at 2, leaving at 3, it's very much of a departure from what we have on our block now. There are other restaurants on the block, and they're pretty much closed by 11 or 12 every night. We have many dozens of young families. We are in a landmark building. They do not have noise-proof windows. And, any disturbances on the street will wake up young children, at the consternation of their parents. And it's a very upscale building. It's been on the block for 15 years. We've survived the Gentleman's Cabaret, and we were very happy when that left. And Cosme moved in, and a number of other restaurants moved in. But as much as these guys have a great operating history, et cetera, this feels like something that belongs on Navue, just like the Metro Cinema they're opening on Broadway on the Upper West Side in the hundreds. This does not feel like a real restaurant. It's just too late. Sorry, I will finish speaking. I'm finished. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Next up, let's hear from David Lamb. David, please turn on your video and unmute yourself. I think we see you.
Okay,
David,
hi.
tell us who you are.
My name is David Lamb. I'm also at 260 Park Avenue South on the block. I would just like to reiterate a lot of what Gene said. I support what he said, which is I think that I have concern that given the size of the space and the number of people that may be there, especially with the bar lobby, which could be become effectively a bar itself. I'm concerned about just having that number of people, the congestion it creates, and people who have had drinks, and I know that they talk about soundproof rooms, but just my experience of being around theaters is that you can kind of hear the noise of those theaters outside those rooms, and maybe they have special rooms, but I would note that the back of the building that they're in is completely also surrounded by residential buildings. So to the extent there's any noise, it will travel and will fill that corridor as well. So in my view, I don't think that there should be an exception made to the restricted licensing criteria that you created, and you should try to you should comply with those. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, David. Let's hear from James Dale.
Hi, my name is James Dale. I used to be on Community Board 5 for a couple of years, and I just wanted to thank the applicant and thank the community board. But I, as a resident, my bedroom actually overlooks where the theaters will be. So I have grave concerns about the quality of life issues of this interesting movie theater concept. and what it will do to the neighborhood. I know that traffic on that street is already pretty bad. I'm concerned when you suddenly have all of these patrons going there, that'll increase. I'm concerned about inebriated patrons having their own small parties in a movie theater will then be let out onto the street and make a lot of noise as well. Again, this is sort of a pretty residential neighborhood in a residential area, and I'm concerned that having a business this large in the neighborhood will have a bad quality of life impact. So I encourage the board to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Let's hear from Jason. Jason, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Right, hi, how are you?
Good, Jason, tell us who you are.
I'm Jason Ridloff. I live on the block. I live at 260 Park Avenue South. I did a little Google while Tim was giving some facts that actually Cosme holds 140 people, so it'd be less than this. So I like to deal with facts, not to make myself look good and expanding upon what's reality. And Cosme actually closes on Friday and Saturday at 10 p.m. and Sunday to Thursday at 9:30. So that's when they serve last. I'm concerned about the traffic, as everyone, 200 people coming to theaters. I'm concerned about 200 people leaving a theater at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 1 a.m., and having drinking until 2 a.m. And I don't know, I'm in my 50s, so this is a great concept, but I'm not going to see a movie on a weeknight and drinking till 2 a.m. So this being a theater in your 50s is hard to actually imagine. And the model with that this is based on has been driven by alcohol, and while a great concept and makes great money and probably a very interesting concept, really would affect the quality of life. I have a young daughter. The noise on the street is not great as it is. It travels up, adding 200 and almost 300 people, 250 people to the street simultaneously or within 10, 15 minutes of each other would really cause issues.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Preet.
Good evening.
Preet, tell us who you are.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I am also a resident at 260 Park Avenue South. We are a condominium that is located on 21st Street between Park and Broadway. We have 110 residences. My name is Preet Sabarwal. I'm one of the condo owners. You've heard from some of the other residents from this building and this condominium alongside another condominium in the neighborhood. I think there's 3 points that we've discussed internally on the building side that lead us to believe strong reason to not deviate from the guidelines of the board. Number one is certainly the traffic on the street. Lexington Avenue does stop at Gramercy Park and 21st Street. So we have a tremendous amount of car traffic, Uber traffic, taxi traffic that's flowing in from 3rd Avenue, Lexington Avenue because of the Gramercy Park stop. You're forced to make a right on 21. So when you're going west, you have that 3rd Avenue, Lexington Avenue, Park Avenue traffic going west. Typically between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., you're going to have traffic piling that is going to stack well into Park Avenue between Park and Broadway. It's quite tremendous. I actually took the liberty of counting cars a few weeks ago after the first call that we had, and between 7 and 9 p.m. you're typically looking at approximately 40% of those cars are either livery, Uber, or taxi. So a large part of them. And we do believe that this establishment would add to that traffic issue. So that's concern number one. Number two, it is a largely residential populated block between Park and Broadway. And there are many condominiums. There are a few rental buildings as well. The majority of these complexes are mixed use. There's a ton of walking traffic from young families up and down 21st Street. Since the rezoning happened, there have been 6 notable condominium conversions between Park and Broadway, including our own. And I'm actually speaking on behalf of the largest condominium between 21st Street between Park and Broadway right now. So our second concern is really the operating hours. We do believe that the neighboring buildings and businesses tend to operate somewhere between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 or 10 p.m. for dinner service, cocktail service, and lounge for alcoholic beverages. So I think that the proposed hours, especially referring to the target audience being in their 50s, staying open till 2 a.m. seems a bit unreasonable. So I think that a deviation from that guideline just wouldn't make sense, and it also just wouldn't fit the local neighborhood. It certainly wouldn't fit the street. So that's certainly a concern of ours. And then number 3, I think that the overall just the foot traffic from the lounge area on the ground floor of the building, we believe, especially with the alcohol beverage sales in the late hours, we believe that the foot traffic and the only 900 square feet of lounge space could potentially be a challenge on that block, considering how shallow we believe that space already is. And what we think could happen is potentially see some spillover from people waiting outside, whether it be pre-movie or it be post-movie. So the building is you've heard from a few residents, but we certainly wish them luck. The applicants have a great business model, but we've got a lot of small kids and young families in the building, including my own. I've got 2 daughters that are 1 and 3 years old, and we walk to school every morning. We pick them up every day, and for the most part, you have some pretty friendly businesses, and then obviously after bedtime, some restaurants open up. You have a pretty high class clientele that's coming on 21st Street. So we'd like to strongly opine against it. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Preet. Next speaker will be Leslie Hendricks. Leslie, you can.
Yep.
Leslie, way ahead of me.
I was actually here on another application, and I'm gonna open my mouth about this because what I'm curious about is, and I don't know, is I don't know what the price point is on this. I'm actually, I think, the target demographic on this. I am older, I'm a movie person, and I like the whole experience without being in a huge theater where people are talking. So to me, this makes a lot of sense. I guess what I hear about what I hear the concerns are is that people are going to come and get really rowdy and drunk. But these seem to be very responsible operators. And so I'm just curious if say 4 to 6 people meet, have dinner, and in one of your screening rooms and watch a movie, what are we talking about money-wise? Because I think that is really a differential, and maybe it would help to see, what people, I'm not sure people are willing to spend a huge amount to get drunk in a small room and watch a movie. But anyway, that's my odd comment and question. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Next up, Allison Halpern. Allison.
Hi there. I'm also someone in the community that has a young child who's actually crying because he's past his bedtime because mommy's on this call. I just wanted to kind of echo some of the sentiments that some other of the residents have brought forward. If you look at this block, it's haircut shops, restaurants that close early, dental offices, tile shops. It's really not the same as almost one block up. There's, between 5th and 6th, there are a lot of patrons that emerge from places having had liquor late at night and make a lot of noise on the street. And I fully understand that it's a completely different demographic that's being targeted. I just worry about kind of people on the street who have just had drinks, who, are trying to figure out the next thing to do, and they're just kind of hanging around, or, maybe they just saw a movie that, kind of judge them up a little bit, and they have some energy and they're just kind of on the block. And there's a lot of people that this is like a very large establishment, staying open late, having liquor. Just wanted to kind of echo the sentiments others have raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll put the committee into a business session. During the business session, no further comment from the applicant or the public is appropriate unless requested by the chair. Before we start the business session, though, I think we can ask the applicant to address Leslie's question about the price points.
Well, I don't know if we can give exact per capita, but I can say that this is an upscale operation. It's going to be, probably for sure the most expensive in the city in terms of going out for dinner and a movie. It's a terribly inefficient use of space, right? Where we have a lot of square footage and only 179 guests. So you can kind of do the math that it has to be comparable with the better restaurants in the neighborhood. So that's what we're going to be offering, and it'll be whereas maybe Alamo can still cater to a much broader audience. This is upscale, and we're focusing more on wine and really nice wine as opposed to beer and affordable. Yeah. So okay, cool.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, business session. Some preliminary thoughts from David.
I guess really two things. Number one is I'm not sure we really want to completely relitigate the RLA timing one way or another. I mean, if there are restaurants that close at 9, but the RLA timing is later, the RLA timing is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing applies here. I don't think we're looking for hours personally. I don't, obviously see how everybody feels, but I think the gist of everybody's comment is nobody wants to go beyond what's been in place and what's been consistently applied and was there for a reason. I actually used to live around the corner before the RLA, and I can vouch to what it was like then. And I live nearby now, and the improvement is dramatic. So I think it gets back, Nick, to the direction you were heading in, to the extent that this really is an operation that can sort of phase itself out in order to meet the RLA guidelines, then my sense is it complies. The other piece of this is this question of square footage efficiency. Is square footage really the right measurement? I mean, I think there are restaurants in the RLA that are significantly larger than 179 seats between the bar and seating. So the population of it is not all that different from other operations in the RLA. Can we make an exception for the 4,000 foot limitation versus the measurement of this space? It certainly is a different use than was the intention of the RLA. So for me personally, as long as they can comply with the time limitations, based on, don't start 4-hour movies after 8 p.m. and, and so meet the guidelines and the rest of the operation and the quality of the operator, I think it'll ultimately work with the neighborhood.
Got it, Christopher.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that this applicant can meet all the time things, and there's no reason not to give them an exception on the size. As we said, the efficiency of the space, like having space for projection and space for dampening the sound, that will also like cut down on the amount of square footage that's actually used by people. But
we can also stipulate that they would not increase their capacity to 179 from 179. So, if you're comfortable with 179, as a limit, given the inefficient use of the space, if we license this space, another operator could come in and say, well, I have all the space, my capacity is going to be 300. We could limit this application, if that's one of the considerations, to 179.
But I would also add, like, the way that the timing works. I mean, I worked at Anthology Film Archives for 10 years, and the way movie timings are staggered, it's number one, like you're gonna have like screenings that are 5, 6, 7 o'clock, and those will just automatically be exiting by 11 o'clock. So you can't even possibly start screenings at times that would make the, it will be easy for this applicant to make sure that only a certain number of people would be exiting the building at the latest possible time. Again, given their willingness to cut off the sale of alcohol by a certain point, that's all the more. I mean, I think that's really is in their favor.
That's a little bit different from what David was saying. David was saying not just cut off alcohol at a certain point, but be consistent with the spirit of the hours of the RLA, which are last call at midnight and 1, and then closing at 45 minutes after that. So I think if I understand what David's concern is, let's treat this operation like any other operation in the RLA with respect to exit times. So, having 179 or, how many people exiting during those late hours would be a concern based on what the residents say. If you have 179 people leaving at 2 a.m., that's going to be disruptive on the block. So if I understand what David's point was with respect to hours, let them close, make them close at the hours that the RLA requires, not just last call. And when I started the conversation, I used last call as an idea, but David's comment was that we should treat the hours consistently with the RLA. Todd.
Okay, so here's what I would say. As to the issue of the size, we should absolutely allow this creative and new style use. In other words, it's way bigger than 4,000 square feet, right? But let's be honest with ourselves. The city is changing exponentially, and there are new paradigms for the use of space and entertainment that are coming up. I think that within our district, we have to be flexible and encourage this type of use. So I would propose, I think we should be flexible and bend in this case as to the size. I would be more flexible than David would be. There's no reason why we can't stipulate that, as you were alluding to at the very beginning, Nick, maybe they could stipulate to a certain number of rooms or a certain number of times. There are, long epics that are 5 hours where they might occasionally need to, go a little bit later. I would be more open to that. I don't think we should be, listen, I understand the precedent for something like this. I don't think it's going to turn into a sports bar or, something that's going to generate huge amounts of traffic. If they were to stipulate that there'd be a smaller number of rooms, so many times per month or per week, where they could slot in their 7-hour epics. There's some, I can remember when I would go to some of the cinemas and there'd be really long shows. I think that would be something that we should permit. But I'm open to hear what other people will say. Certainly what's been said by the residents is very compelling. We're here to balance the interests. Let's see what everybody else has to say.
Samir,
I mostly agree with Todd. I think that movies are unfortunately for me getting longer and longer. I like long movies. And I think because of the structure of the space where the building lobby is a place where people can, be to call their Ubers or taxis or whatever, I don't foresee it being a huge problem when people let out. And so I think that as long as we have the last call, I know that you said that was a suggestion, but I think as long as we have the last call at the hours that are stipulated in the restricted licensing agreement, I personally have no issue with the having people watch movies later until 3 AM or whatever the time would be.
okay,
The question was asked earlier, I think by you, of whether this is gonna proceed regardless of whether they have a license or not, and I don't know that we got an answer to that question, and I think that is germane to the conversation.
sure, we can answer the question. I mean, I suspect that this model won't work financially unless they serve alcohol, but Tim, Mikey, I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we can't survive just on the movies.
Popcorn just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Who else? Janice.
I do want to reiterate just what I heard from the community, which was a concern about inebriated people just wandering the streets past 1 AM. And, I'm not sure, even if we allow for last call at the RLA hours, could they order 10 drinks and then just nurse them like for the next however many hours the movie's going on? Are there any sort of guardrails in place for people preventing people from bringing in their own alcohol? I just think there's, even if you are dealing with small groups of people at a time, they can still make noise, they can still disturb the residents. And at the end of the day, I do think it comes down to the fact that you could potentially have inebriated people on the street at a certain time. So I'm more in, I guess.
You're in Camp David.
Yes, Camp David.
Tim, that does raise a question in my mind. Are you doing bottle service?
So it's we certainly won't. I mean, at Alamo, we allow like a corkage fee for people to bring in their own wine, but that's not really important to me. If that's an issue in terms of people bringing in outside alcohol, definitely I don't care that much about that. Happy to give that up. The intent is really higher end dinner with with wine service is kind of our core offering. It's not a club with bottle service for sure.
Okay. Libby, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate what I had said earlier about this not being a club, that it's really a movie theater. And that's where I'm more team Todd, Camp Todd with the space requirements. I think that your idea too about stipulating so that a different operator wouldn't come in to somehow expand if they want to stick to that. And as far as the letting out being staggered, I think that might help in addition to the patrons waiting for cars, if they're going to get cars coming out in smaller numbers from each thing letting out at different times. I think also isn't like all 179 people are letting out at the exact same time, depending on the staggering, which I think also changes and makes it a little bit easier if we are potentially a little bit more, I guess, like lax for a certain number of nights when they can go late potentially for some sort of saga situation. That closing certain amounts of, like the number of people on the street seem to be the big concern with noise.
Yeah.
More so, and I imagine that there probably is something about like a sound study so that anyone who's concerned about the movie theater noise aspect, maybe we treat that the same way that we would a sound system of a club, because it's in this restricted area, that you can treat that similarly if they're worried about the noise parts. But I do think that in like sort of the spirit of it, the way that it lets out, there is a movie theater 2 blocks away. I don't think that they serve alcohol, but like that does in fact exist. And I think it goes like much later than what they're asking for.
Got it. So I mean, if we're looking at, Team Todd and Camp David, I'm sort of my concern about Team Todd would be if we were gonna move in that direction, then we would have to really limit the capacity during those late hours. So, you know, with David's proposal, I think we could probably allow a little bit more capacity. But if we really were to let people let out of the space, late hours after 2, after 3, you know, I think that would have to be very, very limited capacity. They would really have to taper the occupancy as the night goes on. That's how I see the only way to address the concerns of the residents, that people coming out on the street late at night.
Also, just to follow that up, as far as the capacity of that bar to the public, because that also came up as being concerned of if this is a like happening place to be. Would there be some element where maybe they close? Like,
They've already agreed to.
yeah,
close
earlier than the time frame,
lounge
so.
At RLA time.
Yeah.
They've already agreed to that. Bill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think I'm Camp David. I think a good compromise here seems like being flexible on the square footage, but sticking at or close to the times. Maybe a question or a comment. My assumption would be, but I'd be interested in Tim's view, that those last couple of hours of opening can't be the economic difference between this working and not working, I'm assuming, but I would be interested in hearing that.
I don't know that that's relevant to us.
Well, in terms of striking a compromise, no.
Well, no, I mean, our job is to protect the residents and establish a balance of the businesses and residents in the community. Whether he makes less money if he closes at 2.
Well, what if it's not viable?
Right.
Well, I mean, if it's not viable, then, you know, he can withdraw.
Right, but then
But
that's
I
not
don't-
striking
I
a
don't-
balance between the business and the resident.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to really analyze his profit at various hours. I think that's beyond what we're concerned about. Christopher?
But we do have a situation where we can like have the applicant agree to a number of people that are gonna leave at a particular hour and say, you know, so I mean, is that so difficult to say that like, it's just so hard for us to say like, okay, no more than 35 people will ever be able to leave after, you know, a certain time, like, you know, that all screenings must be finished by, or both screenings must be finished by 1 AM, but occasionally, like, you know, three theaters. or something.
Occasionally is a
Whatever,
bad
I don't really, not occasionally, but he could say like, you know, whatever number of theaters that, again, these theaters are all small. So it's like, you're not gonna get a situation or we can arrange it such that you're ensuring that at maximum, assuming all the theaters are full, 30 people or 16 people will get out of there.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm just slightly uncomfortable with that because by what standard would we make that decision? Like, by what standard would we say the number of people, that it
Yeah.
should be 50, that it should be 20? Like, I don't know that I feel comfortable or.
Speak
I'm
directly
sorry,
comments
I
to
don't know
the
that I
chairman.
feel comfortable or qualified to make that determination. I don't know what that number would be, whereas Camp David, we wouldn't have to, and it would sort of like, here's the RLA and it is what it is.
Got it. David, Seth.
Yeah, can I speak to that? So, first I'm team Todd, I think that's and to that, I think we could limit it to basically like 4K square feet equivalent. So like roughly, right, like probably half capacity. And we could of course like go further down from that, but I think,
So half capacity would be like 80, 85.
yeah, that could serve as a starting point. Yeah, we could talk about that further, but seems like I'm one.
Okay. Still a little bit arbitrary for his point, but
Yeah.
I see where you're trying to go with it. Alan,
I think David's solution is pretty straightforward and elegant in being a good compromise and also respecting the RLA times that exist and not breaking precedent.
good points.
I think I'm also a little bit more in Camp David, especially given the point that the RLA was, I guess, created a lot of consultation with the community, especially. on the
Great.
hours
Speak up.
piece. Especially because the RLA was kind of drafted with community consultation on the hours piece. I do feel like allowing this to continue past 2 AM could be a little bit wishy-washy in terms of how it interacts with the RLA.
Yep. Samir,
I think I'm convinced. I'm happy to move to Camp David.
Camp David? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, yeah, so I just wanted to say that I favor staying within the RLA guidelines, and that in this case, I just remind us what we hear about noise is even the modest amounts of people. So maybe 5 people, 10 people leaving at 2 in the morning in the most quiet places, you know, in quiet neighborhoods, tend to disturb neighbors in landmark buildings that don't have soundproofing. And this is a beginning for the applicant. And so, and it's, you know, it's a way of starting a beginning. So if the, you know, later
Let's
could
not go
be,
down that path.
okay, right. We
Let's
won't go
not
down that path.
We can't go down that path. We'll say, okay, we'll do it this year, and then next year we'll think of something else. We just did that on 17th Street. It's not a good idea.
It's not working. Yeah, no,
No.
and so the other part of this is I do encourage the applicant to find creative ways to engage the community, to engage this notion of so much community hesitancy that there can be screens that say, you know, wear a mask and exit quietly, you know, on the screen. Please be sensitive to our neighbors and leave quietly.
Yeah.
Some of that. Yeah, thank you.
I think that's all a good idea. And, you know, Seth already commented that the applicants want to be good neighbors. He has no concern about that. So I think those comments could be easily incorporated. So I think we're ending towards consensus with Camp David. My only concern about that, and I think we need to think about this a little bit. So with last call at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. with hard close, let's say an hour after that, we could essentially have 179 people leaving all at once at that 2 a.m., 3 a.m. time. So I think perhaps we should consider, because the space does not comply with the RLA guidelines, we are giving them leeway in the space. At least that's what I can feel. But I still think we need to limit the capacity in those later hours, because unlike a restaurant that's open till 1 or 2, tables leave here and there. Here, we're going to have large groups of between 8 and 16 people every 10 minutes leaving at early hours. So I think Camp David should be refined a little bit to include a tapering of occupancy as we get past midnight or something like that. Does anybody disagree with that idea, Samir?
Do we require a tapering of occupancy for any other businesses in the?
No, but if you look at the method of operation of a restaurant, you don't have 8 to 16 people times X number of suites leaving at the same time or within 10 minutes of each other.
But you would for a bar that closes at 2 a.m.
People would trickle out. People would trickle out. We don't see huge groups of people leaving simultaneously at a bar that closes at 2 a.m. People start trickling out after last call. Last call is at 1 a.m. Between 1 a.m. and hard close at 2, people trickle out. That would not be the case here. The movie would end and then everybody would leave at the same time. And then 10 minutes later, that would happen again. 10 minutes after that, that would happen again.
Okay.
Libby.
I just wanted to say that I agree with you. The staging piece of that, I think, addresses sort of like the spirit of the neighbors' concerns about noise and leaving in a way that it mitigates that particular in and out thing.
Okay. All right. So let me go back to the applicant now. So you've been following our thinking here. And I think we're okay exceeding the size requirements of the RLA. The hours are hard no. You would have to agree to last call at 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday, 2 a.m. Friday and Saturday. And then there's the question of tapering the occupancy. So why don't I throw it to you to propose something reasonable about tapering your occupancy after midnight, so that the concerns of the community and the committee are addressed? What would you say to that?
I think conceptually, those times work for us. I just want to be just a little bit clear about, in terms of last call and exiting the building, because that's something we'll just have to it's going to be delicate, right? Because we can't control the hours of a movie, and so that's why we were looking for the flexibility.
And that's why I asked the question, because I think that the committee would consider you having last call when last call is, but allowing the movie to finish for a small capacity.
Okay. Mikey, I mean, I'm just going to throw a number out. You can nod yes or no, but like, I would think, I liked the spirit of confining the square footage, that 4,000 square foot idea. You know, that's a great starting point. I think we could certainly be happy there. Realistically, we could go lower than that. I think it's going to be, we're open to this idea of limiting the number. We're trying to sell you on the idea that this is an exception. It's an edge case for late movie or for 3-hour movies that start, you know, at in this 9 or 10 o'clock arena. So
help me with this. So before, when I asked the question, what's your capacity at 4,000 square feet? It was hard for you to answer the question, but if you could tell me, you know, how many of these 7 rooms on the 3rd floor would be 4,000 square feet, or how many of the what?
I get what you're asking. So the 3rd floor public space is 3,300 square feet. So that's less than 4,000. And on that 3rd floor, I think I said there were 66 seats or something like that.
Right.
So maybe it's 70 seats or 75 seats or something that could be fit in 4,000 square feet if we grossed up that number.
Got it. Okay. So how does the committee feel? Last call.
Tim just corrected my math. It's 80 seats. Sorry. It's 80 seats and 4,000 square feet. That's what the math works out to.
Okay.
But if you like 70, we can go 70.
Yeah.
That's not what the 3rd floor, I'm sorry, that's not what the 3rd floor space is. You're saying 4,000 feet would be the equivalent of 80 seats, wherever that 4,000 feet. Okay.
Thoughts?
I have a question. As I'm looking at the guidelines on our website, I thought last seating is 12 and 1.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I got that wrong. I correct myself. Last call is midnight and 1 a.m. Midnight Sunday through Wednesday, 1 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. Thank you. That doesn't change anything for you, does it?
I mean, that.
It pushes everything back an hour. I was mentally, as you were talking, I was imagining everything. So that pushes everything up an hour.
Yeah, that's my mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mislead you.
Understood.
So last call, midnight and 1 a.m. for, let's say, 80 people and 4,000 square feet of space. Thoughts from the committee about that? Are we getting close?
Sorry, I have a clarification question. It does say last seating. What's the difference between last seating and last call?
They're about the same.
Okay, thank you.
I also just want to clarify something about this idea that you can't control the end time of the movie, which you totally can. You just start earlier. So I don't know that is a valid.
Yeah. Tim?
I just want to clarify. So going back to July, so probably about 42% of our revenue for the month was from Oppenheimer. And when you basically have to stagger show times, if you put a 6 o'clock show, then the earliest you could stage another show, and you kind of have to have 2 shows a night to make the economics work. Then it's a 10 o'clock start time. That's on a traditional movie theater, and we have to squeeze dinner in there. So it's just that it's a 4-hour block of time, and you can only have a reasonable dinner show between the hours of 6 and 7:30.
But that will be okay. Then that could be one of your 80 capacity shows that goes late.
So
What's your proposal for the 80 capacity? What timeframes would that have? The 80 open?
So everything would be last call, midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? There's no, the committee was unanimous about that. We wanted to adhere to the hours. My concern was that last call on the weekend at 1 a.m. would lead to an excess number of people exiting altogether at 2 a.m. So we would limit the number of people that could be out that late. And the applicant proposed 4,000 people, 4,000 square feet would be about 80 people. And then other than that, everyone would have to be out before then. Those 80 people would be the only people that could
So
leave.
the 12 and 1 is only for 80 people.
Correct.
The rest of the capacity of the 179 is early.
Before that,
So
yes.
100 people have to be out by when?
Before midnight and 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Do they under?
What do you think?
Well, like they're out before last call, like that's when they
Yes.
exited already, which is
Right.
like 45 minutes before that their show has.
Right. So to reiterate, if the committee accepts your proposal of 4,000 square feet is about 80 people. So midnight and 1 a.m., all but 80 people would have to leave the premises. Those 80 people would have last call at midnight and 1 a.m. and be able to finish their movie.
So I understand the proposal. I'm not sure I could agree to it without thinking about the implications of it a little bit more deeply. I wonder if there's a way I could go, just think about how whether the showtime schedule would allow us to meet that.
Yes, so the vehicle is called deny unless.
I'm sorry, say that again, Nicholas.
The vehicle to allow you to think about that is called deny unless. The motion would be that we would deny the application unless you agreed to the stipulations and the hours that we propose.
Understood.
Can I clarify one question about this?
Sure.
So just to be clear, the idea is for this group of, say, 80 people at maximum, that they would have their last call at midnight weekdays, 1 a.m. on the weekends, and then the movie, we don't serve them further, but the movie lets out when the movie lets out, right? So if it's a 3.5 hour movie, then that would be, they let out when they let out. There's no restrictions in terms of it's because I'm not sure. That's basically my question. Yeah.
Well, you could have a crazy scenario where someone orders a bunch of drinks at 12:59 on a Saturday and starts a 4-hour movie.
Yep. Well,
I have a different question. Does that then mean that they could start Oppenheimer for 80 people at 11:30 and then it lets out like significantly later than what we were thinking, and then you sneak in like a late lunch and an early dinner and then like a super late, after I've been out show or something? Like,
So
are we
then-
creating a weird scenario by trying to ask for a restriction that we're
So
pushing something
then-
else?
So then we're back to Camp David with 80 people being allowed to have last call at midnight and close at 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday, Thursday through Saturday. Those 80 people would have last call at 1 a.m. and the movie would have to be over by 2. That's what you're saying.
What if
And
you did it
that's
as
what Bill's saying.
establishment capacity goes from the 180 down to 80 at a certain time and down to 0 at a certain time?
Okay, so let's start backwards with that. So capacity would have to be 0.
So capacity, capacity is 180.
Let's start backwards.
Okay.
So the capacity would have to be 0 at 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday.
Yes, correct.
And
2 a.m.
2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday.
Right. And then it would be 80 at midnight and 1. And it would be 179 prior to that.
Got it, yeah. I think that makes sense, and I think that addresses the concern that we have about a large number of people exiting late at night. And that's sort of the theory I had about the tapering.
It's a taper.
The tapering of the capacity.
Could you just repeat that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I'm getting.
permitted capacity would be 0 at 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday. And it would be 0 at 2 a.m. What is it, Saturday?
Okay, so
Thursday.
Thursday through Saturday.
there's no interim 80 anymore.
No, there is.
No, there is.
Where's the 80?
There's an hour
And
after
at
last call.
80, the capacity would be 8, we're going backwards, that's why it sounds weird.
Okay,
Then it would be. Actually, let me go the other way. The capacity is 179,
yes.
right? It drops to 80 at midnight. During the week and one.
Oh, so instead of calling it last call, we're saying.
Exactly, we're just doing it by capacity because that forces people
Got it.
out,
So that, yes, you're not starting, it's not a super late movie, and then you have a 3 a.m. scenario where 80 people are all leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is
So it drops
worse
to
than the
80
thing
at
that we're
12
trying
and
to
1,
avoid.
it drops to 0 at 1 and 2.
Got it.
That's,
Yeah.
just a way to force the
So
spirit. to be
clarify
there.
though, last call is still 12.
there's no last call anymore.
Yeah.
So they can serve.
Well, last call doesn't really accomplish the goal of tapering the
tapering.
traffic.
I understand.
And
I'm saying
anyway,
there is no last call, okay.
yeah, but the way his proposal
Yeah.
sort of eliminates the need for
I
last
understand.
call anyway.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bill, I think you're brilliantly addressed the tapering and improved Camp David significantly. All right. I think that's what we have. The concern is having large numbers of people exiting the theater late at night. So the proposal would be, Bill,
Capacity of 179 normally, tapering to 80 people at 12 and 1 a.m. respectively, and then tapering or going to 0 at 1 and 2 a.m.
that's what we got.
Understood.
Okay. So, who presented this? Okay, would you like to make a motion, deny unless?
Yes, okay, deny unless, motion that we deny unless the applicant agrees to the full list, right? So, no karaoke. I think we heard a sound study. I don't know if we need to stipulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a sound study to make sure that the sound doesn't, leave the theater. I'm setting up the lobby at midnight and 1. And then a tapering, so there's a capacity of 179 through the whole
Until midnight.
theater until midnight, tapering to a capacity of 80 at midnight during the week and 1 on weekends.
Thursday, weekends being Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday,
Thursday
Saturday.
through Saturday. And then tapering capacity of 0 at 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday and 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, David, take to a vote.
Nick Apple. I'm thinking yes. Seth Gordon.
Yes.
Catherine Ellington,
Yes.
Bill Gartland,
Yes.
Libby Hutton.
Yes.
Samir Levingia.
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro.
Yes.
Yaron Nochi Victor.
Yes.
Tiffany Rivas,
Yes.
Todd Shapiro,
Yes.
Zona Shu,
Yes.
Janice Young,
Yes.
Alan Yu,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, so what we do from here, gentlemen, we'll draft an affidavit containing all of these provisions. I'll need to see a final draft of the affidavit on Friday. And we'll need a fully executed affidavit by the close of business on, oh shit, Monday's a holiday. I'm still gonna need it on Monday. Your lawyers are gonna have to work over the weekend because the executive committee of CV5 meets on Tuesday. And I need to present the resolution at that meeting, despite the fact that Monday is a holiday. So we're gonna have to work over the holiday weekend in order to meet that timeline, because I have to present the resolution on Tuesday when the executive committee meets. So that's gonna be the timeline. If you decide that these parameters are not acceptable to you, then the resolution would become a denial for those reasons. So certainly let us know about that if you decide to take that route. But otherwise, please work with Seth and his team to have a draft of the final draft of the resolution to me by the close of business on Friday.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question, Nick?
Yeah, sure.
Did when we talk about the 179, really the 179 number would be larger than that during, say, in the middle of the day as we have our lobby open and we have people arriving.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So the 179 is not really what's important. I don't think it's the 80 and the 0 that are the two important numbers.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
I forgot we did new business.
I am really impressed. I'm really, really impressed. We had some really challenging